Alrighty, I'm recording. Let me not have Twitter up with very lewd and questionable things on my screen.
Yeah,
Keep that
close
up.
your DMs later. It's fine.
Well, anyway, hi. Welcome to a BioDevils podcast. I'm the host, BioDevil Dom, and I'm here and joined by a couple of guests here. Unfortunately, not everybody could make it because of our very awkward scheduling here today. It's not our normal scheduling hours here because typically we try to do late night afternoon podcast. But I am joined by a couple of very cool guests here, so I'll go ahead and introduce them and we'll just kind of go from there. First and foremost, I got a very special guest here, Avalanche Reviews, Jared. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jared. I have a YouTube channel called Avalanche Reviews that some people sometimes might watch from time to time.
Yep. Up next, we got Divic, which I believe this is the first time I've had Divic on my podcast.
Yep, very first time. I don't have a YouTube channel, and I don't want anyone to try and find it, please.
Yep. And last but not least, Mr. Brandel, SirBrandel, Immortal Brandel. You go by a million names these days.
Actually, I don't go by one, sir. Thank you. Yes, your MVP is here. Thank you for having me again, and hopefully I can stay on the whole time this time.
Yep, hopefully. And then, like I said, we were supposed to have a couple of other guests. I'm not sure, where they are. If they do happen to drop by in the middle of this, then, we'll go ahead and do their introductions. But for now, it's just going to be the four of us until, anything else happens. So with that all said and out of the way, let's get to our very first question here. And does anybody else need the doc, by the way, before we go ahead and read that off?
I think I'm good.
Yeah,
Okay,
got it.
cool. Alrighty. So, with number one, which RE handheld titles have you played? So, for me at least, I've played Resident Evil Deadly Silence. I'm going through my very first run of that game, which I decided to go straight into Rebirth Mode for that, but we'll get into that game a little bit more later. I've played a little bit of Resident Evil Mercenaries, and then I also have played Resident Evil Revelations, although most of my playtime with Revelations was on the console version.
Actually, I got a question though.
Yeah.
Do the ports count? Because the Switch exists, and by proxy,
Ooh.
no.
That is
0,
technically
1.
a portable version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not ruling those out because that is actually a question somebody wrote in the doc related to like Switch ports of those RE games. So
All right. Well, to answer your question, yes, I have. I technically did play Deadly Silence though, but that was technically an emulator, so don't count. Don't come at me, Nintendo. So yes, the most playtime I had was Mercenaries 3D and Revelation, but most of that came from the consoles, instead of the handheld. But other than that, though, I guess Resident Evil 5 on the Switch, if that counts.
yeah, I'm not ruling against it per se. I mean, the Switch and like the Steam Deck, they're essentially like console portable hybrids. So
Yeah.
why
and
not?
then there's Gaiden. Yeah, Gaiden is this.
There sure is Gaiden.
I really wish Derek was able to join, because he would be gushing about Gaiden. He likes Gaiden a lot. Alrighty, but what about Jared and Divic? How about you guys?
I have played not only every portable version of Resident Evil, but every Resident Evil game ever released. Officially and mostly unofficially.
Nice.
Are we talking the Java-based mobile phone versions too?
Yeah,
No, it's
anything.
Thousands.
anything
That's one
considered
thing I often
handheld
got
or
on my
mobile.
channel. People would be like, "Well, how about the Java stuff?" And I was like, "There's at the very least 30 Java versions of Resident Evil 4 out there. If we're not, counting South America and Brazil and stuff, it's impossible."
Well, you got to cover the best port of RE4, the Zeebo port.
Of course.
Like,
Good luck with that. That's like impossible to find, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's hardware emulator out there?
No, I've looked into I looked into it pretty heavily because I figured that'd make for a fun video, and it turns out the way that they authenticate hardware in the games, it's almost impossible to emulate. You have to have actual hardware present, and if you don't, the process is so complicated, it's not.
Oh, jeez, that sounds like a nightmare.
It's insane that like the Brazilians made the one game that couldn't be pirated.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're all good on this, unless if anybody else wanted to say anything else.
Yeah, I was going to say Deadly Silence was a big one, which I had only discovered recently and was so enamored with because I unabashedly love the original Resident Evil, as cheesy and horrible and all those other things that people call it. It is.
Yeah.
Played a little bit of Gaiden, and it was a nightmare. Mercenaries 3D, and then Revelations, although I got halfway through Revelations on the handheld, and then my hands started cramping up because I can't hold a 3DS without my hands feeling like they're turning into little knots.
Yeah.
And then I finished it on the PC.
You know, actually, I have a fun little story. So I think I want to say this first or second time I ever visited Tokyo, it was during the release of Revelations on the 3DS, but it wasn't out yet. And at the time, the only playable demo was at conventions or at the Capcom bar. And I didn't know that, but we had to go to the Capcom bar. And then one of the servers asked me if I got into Resident Evil, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. And then they sat me at the bar with a 3DS with like a chain on it so you couldn't steal it with a playable version of it. It was the most surreal moment I've ever had.
Oh, excellent.
Now imagine if you planned it and you actually had like a blade or something to cut the chain and ran off with a 3DS. No.
God, that'd be so. You could sell. I mean, like at the time, people would pay top dollar on eBay for some kind of like 3DS dev unit with Revelations on it.
You know what that reminds me of? So when I was like really little, my mom used to take me to work in the middle of the night because she used to clean banks, and they used to have like Game Boys, like Game Boy Advance SPs, like stationed in like these little like tabletops essentially for like banks. Kind of to throw out my age there, when Bank One was a thing, I think that's what the name of the bank was. When that was a thing, they used to have like those Game Boys, and they were locked in place with these like essentially like these metal locks or whatever. It was like a thing where like they would not allow you to like just slip out the Game Boy. You would have to like literally like pry open the metal or like, you know, cut it out somehow.
About,
yeah. So like they would have that, and you could literally just, I think it was like they were either set to like have Super Mario Brothers 3 or Super Mario World on Game Boy Advance. One of those games on there.
Oh, Game Boy Advance. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so like that's what that reminds me of.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that sounds like it'd be cool. I remember when they and we'll kind of get into this a little bit later too, but like I remember when they had come out with the Revelations demo, and this is like when Revelations had just been announced, and you could like download it for the Nintendo store, and I was borrowing my brother's 3DS because I didn't own a 3DS at the time, and playing it for the first time, I was like this is so fucking good. Like, why aren't they doing a console port? And then eventually they did, but I was just so blown away by like how like amazing that game was. But
yeah, MT Framework was, I mean, people sleep on that. It is an incredible, I know it's not an engine, it's a framework of stuff, but the fact that they had what was essentially a game engine that you could use on the PS4, the PC, and the 3DS alike. I mean, that game looked great. It ran really well for a 3DS game. If more 3DS games felt like actual video games like that, like full console releases like Revelations did, that, I mean, it was already really popular, but I could have seen myself buying like 60-hour JRPGs and stuff on the console.
Oh, for sure,
I
yeah.
agree with you. They definitely do sleep on the framework of the engine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
MT Framework's insane.
Take like Monster Hunter 3 for example. That was built for the mobile framework, and they put it on a console. That game looked console-like without using the actual framework. So Like
Capcom's
stuff
killer
like
with
that.
engines.
Exactly. And now here we are with the RE engine, Reach for the Moon.
Yeah.
That engine just killer.
Yep.
Yeah, that
It
engine
really is.
presses the hell out of me.
So before we get into talking about MT Framework, and that might be a good idea for a future podcast for sure, because there's a whole lot of stuff you could talk about with that. Let's get into number 2, Divic. Since I know you're really big into RE1, why don't you go ahead and read that one off?
Sure. Resident Evil 1 was going to have a Game Boy Color port that ended up being canceled. Many years later, we got Resident Evil Deadly Silence on the Nintendo DS. What do you think of the game, and what would you have liked to have seen other Resident Evil games get a similar port? I don't know how other Resident Evil games would get a similar port on the hardware at the time. Maybe because I spent a lot of time kind of emulating on my PSP years and years ago, and so I played a ton of Resident Evil 2 and 3 on my PSP, and that could work as a like you wouldn't even have to do that much. You could just remap a couple of things and then you're golden.
Yeah.
But then I never thought that a Resident Evil game could work on the DS, and then I played Deadly Silence. I think it was for the first time about a month and a half ago. Blown away. Like I thought that, you know, for obvious reasons, remake of the first game is incredible and will always be like probably the best version of that game. But if I didn't have access to it, if I wanted to play something on an airplane or something like that, or man, Deadly Silence just is incredible for what kind of package it's in, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I'm kind of in a similar situation to you, where like I had only recently picked up that game, which, side note, like getting the American the version of that game has kind of become a bit of a pain in the ass, especially if you were looking to get that game complete, because that game is like starting to run up into like the $150 price range. I got my copy imported from Japan for like $23 because I found out that, you know, despite the 3DS not being region free for 3DS games, it is still region free for regular Nintendo DS games. So that's how I was like, okay, well, there's my workaround. I could play the game, and I know that at least for classic RE games, they did not start doing the Japanese dub until like way later for a lot of those games, so I could still play it and understand it, even though, like, you know, my Japanese is very novice at the moment. So it was like, okay, like I don't have to worry too much about like dialogue heavy, like it wasn't like I was going into like a Yakuza game per se, right?
Yeah, I've beaten Resident Evil in 1 and 2 in Japanese, and it's very easy. Once you've beaten them maybe once or twice before, you can make your way through no problem.
For sure, yeah.
Especially RE2.
Yeah.
I am just piss easy.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm in a similar situation to Divic, where I only have played it for like about a month, and I've been playing it kind of on and off. Only because, well, I've already played RE1 before, so it's not like something I have to like, or at least that I felt like I had to like really like focus on, especially because like not even like 2 or 3 months ago, I was literally just playing RE1 DualShock version off of my PlayStation Vita. So I'm like, yeah, I kind of already played this game, so I kind of want to, you know, take a bit of a break from it, right? But yeah, I like it. I really dig that game. I think that, you know, a lot of the mechanics that they added in, like the fact that you can actually pull out your knife in the middle of combat and not have to have a dedicated slot for it, like that was amazing to me. Like, it's
such a small change, but it makes such a big difference to the gameplay.
I know. And then there was like, you know, they added in quick turn, which was not a thing in the original RE1. And then the auto aiming, that kind of came in from like the DualShock version, as far as I'm aware. But like that stuff was like, hey, cool. Like they genuinely made an improved version of RE1 that, honestly, if you were not into the original RE1 from a gameplay standpoint, like this is probably the best way to play it, because like they added in all these cool little mechanics that really improve that gameplay and make it feel more like some of the games that came after it. And, you know, to answer kind of the second part of the question, would I have liked to have seen other Resident Evil games get a similar port? Yes, like specifically for like those classic like PlayStation 1 RE games. Like, I would have loved to have seen like RE2 get a DS port. RE3, I think they should, if that were to have ever gotten a port, I feel like they should have jumped on the 3D train with that and just be like, here's Resident Evil 3D Nemesis, right?
Yeah, that kind of makes itself at that point.
Right? Like, and like, could you, I'm just thinking about this from like the perspective of like, yeah, I know 3D is a gimmick, but like, that would look really cool just to be able to see the original RE3 have like some 3D aspects to it and, some neat little additions that the game didn't originally have.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's totally doable. It is mega doable. If you can get RE1 working, it would not take a significant amount more effort to get RE2 and 3 working on the DS. I assume. Actually, I don't know. They're so good with like compression and stuff with those DS cartridges. I don't know. I think it's doable. I think right now probably a modder could do it and have it like work as a finished product.
For sure, yeah. I could definitely see that, especially with how dedicated I would say the RE community is with like making their own like RE games or just unique mods on like the PC versions for like those older RE games. Like I could see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's right now in the works the Resident Evil Survivor mod that allows you to play it as an actual Resident Evil game with fixed camera angles, and it works on real hardware. You can put it on an ISO, put it on your PS1 right now, and play it. So it's. I think it's doable right now. I think it was doable back then too, and I wish they would have done that because I've long been a supporter of the idea that Deadly Silence is probably the best version of Resident Evil 1 you can get your hands on, like modern day.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, people will agree with that, seeing how much they added in. Considering the game, like, 10 years old at that point, or less. So, like, yeah, I definitely would agree with that sentiment as well.
Yeah, it's too good, it's too accessible, and a lot of the stuff that is there, a lot of the new stuff that's there, if you don't like it, you don't have to use the quick knife button, you don't have to look at the on-screen map, but if you're someone who wants to play a Resident Evil game today, and maybe you're not so used to that survival horror style, I can't think of a better like window to get into it, like a better like training wheels type of deal than Deadly Silence. And then once you kind of get your mind wrapped around how to play these games, and you jump into, like you said, RE2, which is significantly more easy difficulty-wise, and then boom, you're ready to go.
Yeah. I'm trying to think too, like with what they could have done too with like other ports of like RE on the DS, because like that game is a little bit more unique in that the gameplay screen is all happening on the bottom screen, so you can't flip it at all as far as I'm aware.
No.
But having that, it's like you go through the different options of like you could use the touchpad to like interact with the inventory. You get like all these neat little additions with like combining items and examining them. Like they actually have like a unique 3D model for like the handgun, because it was actually like the Samurai Edge in that version, which wasn't the case in all the other ports. You know what? There was one other thing I almost forgot to bring up too, was that you have manual reloading, which was a thing in Resident Evil Remake and Resident Evil 0, which that kind of blew me away, because I was like, imagine if you could like have that manual reloading in something like RE3, where like it's really like intense, especially once Nemesis starts like bursting through walls and windows and stuff like that. Like being able to just reload on the fly, like it'd be great.
Yeah, and it's balanced really. Like for example, something like Outbreak, where you can do it, and it. I mean, you could make an argument that it's like maybe a little easier or whatever it is, but all right, so balance it out. You can only do it like one round at a time, so it's an emergency type of deal.
Unless if you find a magazine, yeah. So
yeah, it's total man. That'd make it so fun. God, modders know how to do this shit too. We can make this happen modern day.
We're throwing out some ideas there.
I'm one of those people who like, why would you manually reload when you just pump the game in reload that way.
'Cause it feels so much more like dynamic and fun when you're like in the moment. You don't have to pause the action to reload.
See, that was a better answer than what I was gonna come up with. I was gonna say, well, like, you know, in the sense of like, okay, you know, if you're in a room and you know that there's nothing there, you just killed that last zombie or the only enemy that was in there, do that manual reload.
That makes sense.
You know?
Well, I'm talking about in the heat of action. I'm like, you know what? Since I know it's a safer option, I will take a safer option. You know?
Yeah,
It's such a cool little thing to have in your arsenal.
yeah.
Don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I was thinking more so because, like, when I was going through, like, my speed run of RE Remake for my Platinum trophy run for that game, I was thinking, like, oh, well, you know what? Like, this saves me, like, a few seconds, and, like, you know, every few seconds that you could shave off on your run, right? Like, that helps, right? Like, so, like, that's kind of my mindset of it. Granted, I know, like, I'm not necessarily, like, a professional speedrunner or anything like that, and I don't do it all the time. It just, that's kind of where my mindset is like, if you could save a few seconds on your run and get a, you know, higher ranked grade because of your time, you know, why not?
Yeah.
For me,
And
at
then
this point
plus,
in
it'd
my
be
life,
a really
it's-
cool difficulty mod if you could you can get rid of the inventory screen that pauses the action, then have like an outbreak style system where you have to either make sure there's no enemies around or manually reload one round at a time.
Yeah. Divic, you were trying to say something?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was gonna say I'm so used to it at this point in my life that I still find myself when I was playing Village, I was pausing to try to reload. Like it's just it's so ingrained in the back of my head where I keep my weapon in a certain slot and I will pause and I will hit, you know, X down down X or X down X, whichever the, you know, wherever the reload is, and I just instantly, you know where it is. So I'll do that in modern ones sometimes, and I have to kind of take a step back and go, don't have to do that. There's a button now.
Yeah, I do it for Resident Evil 5 too, because it is pretty convenient to do it just on the snap. You know?
Oh yeah, at 5 it's even easier because that grid is just so like conducive
Tiny.
to. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. You know, and since we're on the subject of like deadly silence at the moment, like, the one thing I thought was really kind of cool was that they had the Rebirth Mode, right? And that's the only mode that I've personally played so far with that port. But they had like these special like inventory boxes where you could solve a puzzle for like an additional item, or like they would have those moments where you would go into a room, right, and you'd be in first person and you have to start knifing zombies, and in some instances they might drop like a item or two, right? What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a great addition. I mean, especially the way they implemented it, where it's optional. You know, because there's some aspects that were a little too gimmicky, like having to breathe into the microphone to revive what's his face.
Oh, Richard. Yep.
Yeah, Richard Eichen. Like, on paper it's a cool idea for sure. I didn't enjoy doing it, but I love that it's an option for someone who wants to.
Yep.
That's one thing I just do not like about a lot of these consoles stuff is gimmicks. Because once a gimmick fades away, then you try to revisit that game, the gimmick just becomes an obstacle more so than an experience. So I don't like that. But yeah, that's it, Robert. I guess we can move on.
Yeah, I think we're good, unless if anybody else wanted to say anything here before we moved on. Nope.
All set.
Alrighty, so Brandon, you want to go ahead and read off number 3 then?
I could, but no. How do you feel about the canceled Resident Evil Portable for PSP that was only mentioned once? Were you excited about the game, and what do you think happened to it? Well, no, I wasn't excited for it because nothing came out of it. What thing happened to it? I canceled. Either that, or it got so stuck in development hell that it was effectively canceled. Just like how I think, Devil May Cry was going to have a portable game, but that got shafted because of reasons.
Interesting.
But,
I did not know about the Devil May Cry thing, but...
Was there anything, like any concept, any plot, anything about the game that came out? Because I know it existed, but I didn't look into it.
So the only thing I'm aware of with Portable, this is like actually one of the few RE things that I am not too knowledgeable on, but the only thing I know is that they announced it at I think it was like an E3 or like some kind of game show, and it was literally just zombies walking, and they had Resident Evil Portable, and at the time they had that new like title font going, or typeface going for RE, so it was matching like the Resident Evil 5 sort of logo, and that was it. And all we knew is that that game was slated for PlayStation Portable, but nothing else came out of it.
Yeah, man, that would have been so good. The PSP was such a slept-on console. Like that
It
thing
really
was such
was.
a powerhouse.
But you know, you can partially blame Sony because, as usual, they do something to fuck it up or something
Yeah.
that happened that has out of their hands, aka the piracy.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't exactly help in that regard either. But I mean, I have to imagine sort of the limitations of the PSP's processing power would likely force them to use a more traditional Resident Evil sort of framework. You know, like your typical classic survival horror approach. So that's the only thing that comes to my mind when I think PSP Resident Evil. It's like, okay, well, they probably aren't going to make like a fully functional third-person shooter on the console, or it might be a little hard to, whereas a fixed perspective game with the PSP's beautiful 3D graphics, oh, God, it could have been great.
Yeah, I do have a question in the doc later on about both PlayStation Portable and Vita related to RE stuff. So, like, definitely start working up some answers there for later for sure. But, like, you know, in relation to Portable, I'm thinking, you know, kind of like what you mentioned, they probably could have done it in a specific framework. Hell, I think they probably would have done it via some kind of gimmick. So that way it would have stood out on its own. You know, maybe like a top-down style of like RE, which I don't think would have been
That'd be
necessarily
kinda
out
cool,
of the
honestly.
question, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, because the only thing we've ever gotten out of Portable is, again, as far as I'm aware, like, it was just a trailer of zombies just walking on screen, and then just the title appearing. So that was it.
Sounds like
Yeah,
Fire 13.
there was like some announcement at E3 2000. I just watched it while you guys were talking. It's like a minute long. The dude's like, "Yeah, we're gonna make sure it's on the go. Yeah, it's great." And then just like nothing. It's like that was it.
You
It's just a
know, that's
picture
par
of
for the
PSP.
course for Capcom. Right? They
Yeah.
have every single Resident Evil game, almost every single Resident Evil game, has hit some kind of wacky fucking issue in development. And I mean, we're so lucky that we've gotten the Resident Evil titles that we have, because they seem to screw up development nonstop.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4.
Or Resident Evil 2.
Oh God, Resident Evil 2.
I mean, can we also talk about Sengoku Biohazard? How that was going to be a thing at one point, and then that's how we got
there you go.
Onimusha. Like, you
It
know,
looked so
like,
good too on PS1.
yeah, and then, well, and at that point too, when it became Onimusha on PlayStation 1, like, you know, the trailer that's available out on YouTube that you could see for that game, I think it was like 2 different versions of it. Like, for what it is, like all the different areas and stuff that you got, it looks really cool. Like, I would have killed to play that, but granted, I still love my PS2 official release with that as well. So, but that's
what surprised the hell out of me was how, like, close. When you look at the PS1 footage, it's so clear that that's exactly what they took and put on the PS2. Like, it is almost shot for shot, just with it's like a PS1 demake of Onimusha. It's so cool.
Almost, yeah, with the exception of like a couple of
It's
areas.
insane.
Yeah, you're not kidding. On all these areas.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
so
a
good.
couple of areas that they had in that trailer that are not in the official game, that they had to cut regardless because of, like, you know, having to start from scratch. And then even then, like, I think like after they did the Xbox port for that game, Genma, because they added in that additional area, Phantom Tower area that you could do, which super fun, by the way, if anybody's not played Genma Onimusha. But like, even that, like, I don't know if that was necessarily in that original PS1 port, if that was something that they did like from scratch. But, like, you know, I imagine that Onimusha 1 originally how it was going to be a slightly bigger game than what we ended up getting.
Yeah, I
But
assume so.
but that's neither here or there, because we'll talk about Onimusha maybe some other time as well. I don't think there's a whole lot we can really say about Resident Evil Portable, unless if Brandon, you had any other things to say about it.
Honestly, we said more about other stuff than the actual thing at hand, so I should tell you right there.
Yeah, it's like it's really not a whole lot we can say about it.
You know what, I gotta ask though, like, what premise, what characters, whatever you would like to see for this portable experience?
Ooh. You know,
Honestly,
I'm gonna have to go off like just pure off the top of my head. If it's going to be like a sort of, I would want a spin-off because I wouldn't want like a mainline title on the PSP. I would want something with a little more horsepower behind it for like a Resident Evil, you know, whatever numbered entry. So
they usually
if it was
do.
gonna be like a spin-off, I would be super cool seeing just all brand new characters, brand new setting, you know.
For me, honestly, being that this is a spin-off, and Capcom does have a lot to lose, really, implicitly, right? So, I'd love to see them either bring back the Outbreak cast, or some of them, for whatever
Mm.
reason, maybe, or maybe bring back Billy,
Oh yeah, for
uh,
sure.
bring back Carlos, you know, bring back characters that, you know, at that point in time, you just didn't see, you know, in another game.
I was gonna
That
say,
would,
with you, Outbreak Cast, I'm with on that, but give me weird zombies that I don't see anywhere else, like the zoo level in Outbreak File 2. Give me that. Give me weird like zombie lions and stuff. I want that.
you know, I'm
Mm.
with you on that, though. I think we need a little more diversity in the zombie
I,
department.
see,
I'm talking zombies.
Zombie capybara.
I am really weird with this because, like, I brought this up, I think, the other day when Jared was streaming RE2, or maybe it was something else that he was streaming, but, like, I was saying, like, I really dig the whole idea of, like, the plant-like zombies that they had in, like, Outbreak File 2, because that was also going to be a thing in the canceled Biohazard Dash, where there was going to be, like, you know, like infested zombies or whatever. So like they were still regular zombies, but they had like these vines that they could use and stuff like that. And I kind of like that idea. But I also just like the idea of just if you could just change it up even just a little bit with those zombies. Like I like the idea, you know, like do something different with it. You know, because we're talking about a franchise, you know, that, you know, granted, I know like it started off as zombies, but it's mostly about like these like biological like monsters that are being created or other sort of biological hazards, right? Hence the name Biohazard. But you know, with the amount of lore that we have in like RE now, granted at the time too, we probably had quite a bit still as well. Like they could have done a lot of different or interesting or unique ideas, or even like an original idea that they haven't done, like. Because you know, with like the Revelation series, for example, we ended up getting the like the T-Abyss virus, right? So like, I don't know, different shit. that's all I could really ask for with zombies.
I'm gonna go against the grain here, man. I am a purist of the highest caliber.
I believe you.
You know, it's so weird, and it's one of those things where, like, yes, this is how I feel, but I don't expect anyone to you know, get on board with this
Right.
either. But there's something about zombies that they speak to me in some very weird, deep, personal, like visceral level that just freaks me out. And I always kind of thought of Resident Evil as a game about zombies, and then they're like the rare bio weapon as well. But I want my Resident Evil game to have zombies in it. And if you are going to have variations on zombies, maybe don't gamify it quite. I don't want to be aware that you're actively trying to, you know, make the game more fun to engage with or change things up. Make it so that it makes sense within the universe. So like a lot of like, I think there's a few zombie books that I've read where one of the biggest threats was zombies who were present during like some kind of nuclear bombardment, and they became irradiated and you couldn't get near them, and they sort of like glowed at night. You know, that would be something like that where it makes sense within like the lore of the universe, instead of like, I like the idea of an ivy, like a zombie that has vines growing through it and stuff, but it doesn't make sense to me how that zombie would be able to manipulate anything that was growing on it at that point.
So
Like in Outbreak, they had those.
so in the case of like in the canceled Biohazard Dash, it was supposed to be like remnants of Plant 42 that infected the remaining zombies that were on the site.
That is kind of cool.
And
that is kind of sick.
yeah, and like from my understanding, based off of this canceled IP, was that it was gonna be like you were going through the destroyed remains of the Spencer Mansion like a couple years after the initial incident, and you were going to be going through like rooms of the mansion that got exposed that you could not go through before, that were not showing up on the map because they
Such a cool.
like they were hidden basically, you know. So and I oddly enough, I think the guy that's working on that mod for or one of the guys that's working on like one of those like RE fan ports or whatever, like I think it was the Gaiden one. He's working on that as well, like a fan recreation of that, which honestly I love the idea of it. But in like Outbreak, it was the case of like the axe murderer's wife was like mutated into like a plant BOW, so that's how a lot of those zombies were becoming infected with like the plants and stuff like that. So like and I kind of get what you're saying with you know, not making it feel so like, oh well, like here's like each like kind of like archetype of a zombie type of deal, right? Where it's like it's easy to kind of tell like, oh okay, this is what this is, or this is what that does, right? So I'm
Like how Last of Us does it.
yeah, like because what I'm thinking is like based off of how like Jared explains it, right, is like more like kind of maybe more like how like the Crimson Heads work, where like that shit could just happen over time, or you know, maybe it is like area specific, where like you could run into that thing because it happened in this specific area, and there's like a whole like story reason as to why that happened and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm pretty forgiving if you just think of a really good in-game reason and not just, you know, they're here now.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to add to, I'm actually in the opposite camp of what Jared said earlier about when I think Resident Evil, thinking zombies. When I think of Resident Evil, I think of the BOWs, now which zombies do technically count under that though, right? But let's be honest here though, most of the memorable things in Resident Evil are like the stronger monsters, like everybody will talk Under the Sun by Mr. X, Nemesis, the Hunters, Lickers, etc. So like if they don't have like memorable monsters in it, then the zombies will, you know, can't really carry that slack unless, you know, Capcom really goes bonkers with them.
I think it's doable. I think it is. I think what you have to do is sort of tweak the difficulty to where zombie grabs are much, they'll deal much more damage, and
So
you
want
have much
Resident
less
Evil 2
ammo.
or Resident Evil 4 type grabs, because that's the conversations I do not want to have.
No, I mean like if you're going to have a game, sorry, for some reason Sumida Tokyo is just filled with people who are dying nonstop. It's insane. This is why I can't record a voiceover. But I think you could make a Resident Evil game where you only come up against zombies, as long as you control the pace of the game and the location you're in. You know, you could make a room full of 3 zombies incredibly terrifying if you don't have as much ammo, but it takes less ammo to kill zombies. But they grab you and bite you, like deal much more damage. I think it's doable, and that again, this is just coming from someone who I understand. I have a psychotic thing for just the zombies and nothing else. I love the Lickers; they're great. You know, the idea of a tyrant, so cool. But for me, I think I would be totally satisfied with a Resident Evil game that only gave me zombies.
So I got one other question kind of in relation to this side topic that we kind of brought up before we move on to the next thing. You know, given that we had zombies that could literally leap like 20 feet across a room in RE6, and we also had zombies that could you know, basically gang up on you in like RE0, where they could bite you from, you know, behind and in front at the same time. I know that sounds really wrong, the way that I just described that, but
It's just a good time on Saturday night.
Oh yeah, for sure.
but like, you know, given like that we've had that, like, how would you feel like if they had that in like a you know, like a Resident Evil portable, you know, like if they started implementing more stuff like that from like RE0 or like RE6, for example, where like, you know, zombies are like leaping across rooms and shit.
I think when you increase the typical like zombie, let's say, move set, make them faster, or like in RE6, or like no joke, 30 feet away, they would jump at you, and you would have to on reaction counter. Hopefully your TV doesn't introduce a lot of lag. I think when you do that, it kind of shows that you have increased the action element in the game so much that you have to make the zombies more dangerous. And I think more than anything, that probably shows like you have messed up the balance of the game to a degree that you have to start incorporating weirder, dumber elements to make up for what you've done. So like I'm all on board with an action game that has zombies in it and stuff, but it's doable without making zombies jump at you from 30 feet away.
I legit glad you mentioned 6 though, because that's an example of a game overtuning zombies in general. Like, I almost found them having weapons because, you know, even in today there was a movie that, you know, the last scene that the zombie remembers, the field or whatever, they can utilize those skill sets, which is also kind of cool. I'd be fine with that. But the fact that it can jump 30 feet away from you and God knows does whatever else, man. Like, sorry, that just overtuned to its highest degree. I do not like that.
Yeah, but Leon can do Chow Yun Fat action moves in like relation to it, so it's kind of balances out a little bit.
Man,
I
if
feel
you
like
can literally hit the button in time, which in Resident Evil 6, especially back in the original release, like good luck with that.
I mean, get good, dude. I'm sorry.
on PS3, how slow it ran.
Yeah, because we were at the 30 FPS lock with that.
I cannot.
Yeah, and with frame drops, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very astonished by how many hours I put into the PS3 version, even though I ended up returning it later on because I got the PS4 version. But yeah, because I was gonna say, you know, as far as like having those ridiculous zombies, I'm just waiting for that inevitable RE5 and RE6 remake, because you know it's gonna happen. When's my more horror-filled RE6?
Oh man, that would be a dream, honestly, especially in the RE engine. Oh.
Right, because you know, like I get, like, you know, even with like RE4 remake, right? People are like, oh, does it really need a remake, right? But like, you know, as time moves on, these games are getting older, right? So eventually they're gonna have to, and at least in the case of RE4, they can only do an HD port of the same game so many times until, you know, people get bored of it, right? So
until
we are talking
forward.
about Capcom, though. You need to be careful with what you're wishing.
Right. I mean, all I'm saying is that I'm open to a remake that changes things and makes it feel a little bit more like Lost in Nightmares in terms of just atmosphere and pacing. So, but that's all I'm saying.
It is definitely doable.
That's a whole nother conversation that we're diverging off.
Right. But anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna let Jared read off number 4 here, and then we'll continue from there. Then
Number 4. Okay, I need to do my DJ voice. Given how some ports of pre-existing games tend to introduce new features, content to compensate for the ports, reduced performance metrics, i.e. RE6 on Switch, having the ability to change costumes in the campaign, do you feel these would be an acceptable compromise?
Well, this is a Capcom issue in general, not just, let's say, Resident Evil, you know. Unfortunately, they have a tendency to, you know, have mechanics or whatever locked behind another version that's, you know, technically not the most accessible Switch version. So, now granted though, it doesn't give incentive to try the game out though, but at the same time though, like, it's kind of cop blocking people who already paid for the version, you know, in the same generation, I might add. Too,
That honestly, that's a good point, but I do think that if you are going to port a game to the Switch or something, you should probably add something that wasn't available in whatever other port came before. But like you said, that is true. You do run into that issue where someone, is like, well, I just bought it on PS4, and now I don't get X content, because I didn't have the right console. That's a tricky situation.
I would say, like, in the case of, like, RE6 in particular, when that happened, not as bad as the situation with, like, Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition, where you had, like, the whole, like, co-op feature and then multi-weapon switch feature and style switch feature, which was not a thing in any of the other ports. And at least on PC...
game-changing stuff.
Yeah, and at least on PC, you had to, like, mod that kind of stuff in. But like if you were on PS4 and Xbox One, like you were shit out of luck basically. But like RE6, well, most of it was just, hey, you can just change costumes. Which, granted, that's been a request that people have had since day one, like back on, the initial PC, PS3, and 360 release of the game. So why they decided not to patch it in any other version, or at least make it a thing where like maybe the Nintendo port got exclusive Nintendo costumes or something like that, is beyond me. I'm not entirely against the idea of like another port having exclusive like features or mechanics per se, but it really depends on what those things are, especially like given the examples that I kind of gave off, because some of those examples, it was kind of like a situation of like Capcom being a bit tone deaf in terms of just like, hey, this is what the community is asking for, but they're not asking for it on just this one port. They're asking for it across the board. So, like that kind of thing, I understand why people would be upset about it. In fact, I'm quite upset about it at times, but at the same time, kind of looking at it from the flip side, I also kind of see why they would want to do like additional mechanics and stuff like that wouldn't be found in another port. Kind of like how we were talking about like Deadly Silence with the exclusive like knife feature and quick turn and manual reload stuff that wasn't in the PlayStation port.
Yeah, I could. You know what I think would be the best compromise there would be some sort of timed exclusive to this feature or this whatever it is. I mean, I like the idea of console-specific costumes or, special unlocks and stuff like that. I think that's a cool idea, but if you're going to add something like, let's say, the equivalent of a quick turn, maybe be like, okay, Switch port gets this, and then we'll release an update to 1.02 on PS4 and Xbox One or whatever 2 months from now, something like that,
With features to compensate for the kind of lower polygonal stuff or anything like that, the first thing I thought of when I was reading this question was like, do they mean like for a Switch port, for example, like dirty Mario and like, or like lewdish Mario kind of costumes for a female protag like Bayonetta 2? Like that's a because I wanted to get a Switch for Bayonetta 2 specifically because I was robbed of that game on any other like console or anything, but it's a weird touchy area because if you add certain things, people will say it's not worth it. If you add too much, people will say, well, why did they get that version? Like, why did they get those
it's a balancing
features?
act for sure.
Yeah, with something like Resident Evil Deadly Silence, not to like be all about that game, but with Deadly Silence, you have all this stuff that's brought in after the remake has come out, after the game has been out, the original game has been out for a very long time. So you can kind of add stuff to that, and enough people have not played the game and enough time has gone by where people can go, oh, cool, I can grab that, and like it'll totally be worth the price. Yeah. You do it with like Resident Evil 4, even. I think people would like lose their minds, just because because that's what people who play video games do sometimes. Is they just lose their minds for irrational reasons. It would be.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that too, Deadly Silence, because that's actually a good one. The one issue you can see with Deadly Silence is that it's not accessible anymore, considering how feature complete it is, and arguably the definitive edition of Resident Evil 1, the original at least. No, so that's not an accessible option for us to play games, though. Play the game, in contrast to, say, the billion ports of Resident Evil 4. No.
Right.
I don't know, like you guys mentioned, it's a balancing act though, but it does come down to like how do you want to do it. When you talk about feature additions, that should be accessible to everyone. Whereas like it was like some costumes exclusive to a platform, like say I don't know Halo Chris or whatever, they had obviously that'd be Microsoft thing.
Well, and then the other option is changing the gameplay completely, but still keeping the narrative. So, like, imagine if Resident Evil 4 became, like, an SRPG or something like that released on a handheld. Like, then it's kind of... That enters this weird, foggy territory, which I'm not familiar with at all. So
I think you are familiar with it, and you don't even know you are, because that was the glory days of the SNES and the Genesis. A port of the same game would be a totally different game on one platform versus the other.
Oh,
and
God,
I've
you're
kind of
right.
been thinking for a while, it would be cool to see a return to that.
That's not
Resident
just
Evil
exclusive
cross
to-
XCOM.
I mean, it's not a good idea. Like, financially speaking, if I was a big game developer house and, one of my developers came to me and said, hey, I have an idea. Let's automatically out the gate limit the amount of people who can purchase this video game. It's like, no, done. Bad idea. But holy fuck, would that be cool to see.
Yeah, so I think we're all good here, right? We don't got anything else to say related to this this question, so I guess we could move on to the next one here, and I'll go ahead and read off this. Unfortunately, one of our guests can't join us, but that's all right. Of all the handheld titles, which one would you consider to be the best? And honestly, I don't know. I think we could all agree that Gaiden, which is probably the worst one, unless if Derek was here, he would tell you otherwise. Because he
I would
was.
argue the Evil port of Resident Evil 4 will belong down there as well. Hell, I'll probably go as far as say it's worse than Gaiden, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah. But as far as best, it's kind of tough because, I actually really like Mercenaries. The Mercenaries game that they have on 3DS is actually really good, and I wish they would implement some of the mechanics from that game into a new Mercenaries like mode, or even just a new standalone Mercenaries game in the future. Obviously I've played Revelations, and I thought Revelations 1 was a great game. Not perfect, but as far as like a RE story goes, like it was as good as it needed to be. And I'm playing through Deadly Silence right now, and I'm really enjoying that. I think the only thing I would want out of that game in particular is just the colored intro, and it was the colored intro cutscenes, because they or FMVs, because they had those in like black and white still on that port. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of difficult for me to pick, because I kind of like a little bit of everything on all of them.
Honestly, it's probably the most straightforward for me. It will honestly be Revelations. Why? Because it's probably the most polished and straightforward game of all of them. Because even like say Resident Evil 3D that came out first, that game has a few issues on its own, especially when it comes down to the frame rate. So that's an issue right there. Which Capcom should have fucking ported it, but second place though would definitely be Deadly Silence. Just the simple fact that they made the definitive version of Resident Evil 1. Just wish it was more accessible.
Yeah, I could get behind the idea of Revelations, because it's its own like complete, polished, total package, versus like Deadly Silence is, I mean, like I said, best version of RE1. But it is, yeah, it's just a port of RE1 though, at the end of the day.
So, real quick before you go, Divic, when can we get that port of RE2 where Tifa runs around waving the Italian flag all over the place? That's gonna be the best portable port of RE2. Okay.
I opened up Twitter for 5 seconds and saw that, and I couldn't even process what I was staring at.
Right. I had to chuckle at that because that was pretty funny. So
that's why I avoid that site. So yeah, like everybody's been saying, it's Revelations and Deadly Silence. Revelations because of how good it is for a handheld title. It's a shockingly complete package for a handheld title of all things, But I would say up until probably the PSP, you'd always think of handheld titles as just little one-off things, and then the PSP kind of started to bring them into more of like their own thing, especially with like the God of War games and all that. But man, that Deadly Silence port is so good, and my love for the original Resident Evil is so high. It's kind of a toss-up between those two.
Yeah.
I wish that Deadly Silence was on the PSP though, because PSP was the home of remakes of the song, especially with Capcom. Imagine that on the PSP, it would have been fantastic, and again, more accessible.
I really dig the since we're kind of going back to Deadly Silence a bit, and I kind of forgot to bring this up. I really dig the remix tracks that they did for that port of RE1 as well.
Oh God, yeah.
Like the save room theme, or like the theme whenever you get poisoned by the snake and get back into that room with the serum or whatever after you wake up from passing out. Like it's just really good. Like, even though it's like so like such a basic like remix, or like just additional like instruments or like beats that are kind of added in, but they just, I don't know, it's a nice little like touch to like a new take on RE1.
Excuse me, that snake has a cool name, and you'll respect that cool name, because I can never get over how cool the snake's name is.
Yawn?
Yeah.
Boy, bore.
I don't know. Man, get out of here.
That has to be sarcasm. I love it. Like, they're like, okay, it's got to be. Listen, it's a snake. It's a badass. Like, you got to be scared of it. What are we gonna name it that doesn't make it sound boring?
Somebody
like, oh, I've got you.
Somebody
You're promoted.
Literally somebody's yawning at work.
No, it's cool. Shut up.
I know I might be wrong about this, but I'm almost positive those remix tracks are only available in the Rebirth mode.
Really?
I could be wrong about it. Something in my head is telling me that's true, though.
I actually don't know.
It makes sense considering, though, it is the remix game, right? So that would actually check out.
Yeah, I actually legitimately do not know, because it is my first time going through that game, so, or at least on that port of the game. And I decided to go with Rebirth Mode as my first run, so so I really don't know. But yeah, like I don't know, did everybody went on this, right, as far as picking out their favorites? So Brandel, why don't we go ahead and get number 6 read off here?
I could, but okay. What do you think of the general appeal of having Resident Evil on the go is? Just play Resident Evil on the go? I mean, what's more on there,
I guess the for me, because the question was more so like, like Capcom is making these ports, right? And typically when we look at an RE game, it's usually a console experience, right? So I guess I'm kind of thinking about it from the perspective of like, hey, what is like the genuine appeal of, like, aside from it being like, oh hey, you could literally play Resident Evil on the go, like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the appeal of having like that smaller form factor Resident Evil game to play?
I get it. Well, I mean, honestly, really, it's just straightforward answer. Just to play it on the go, like, or something along those lines. Because for me personally, I love playing Resident Evil 2 and 3 on my PSP whenever my PSP was charged. I always play those on the go all the time, wherever I go. Always play 2 and 3. So the general appeal is like, it's fucking great. I don't have to sit down on my console. I can literally take the same experience on the TV and put it on my PSP and move on. I guess that's the general appeal of Resident Evil. So long as it's so long as it's decent or really good at its quality. Case in point, look at Revelations. It's literally a console experience on the 3DS, and then you got the Switch ports of the Resident Evil titles. Same experience you get on the other consoles, with maybe a few frame rate drops, but that's
well, and I'm in that same boat where games like specifically Resident Evil 2 and 3, Dino Crisis 2, and for some reason Real Fishing, I don't know why, but those are like
yeah, I do play Dino Crisis 2 as well.
Those are like super comfort games to me, and I used to spend a lot of time in an ambulance, like 12 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week. So when we had dead time, or if I had to travel somewhere or what have you, like, I would whip that out and I would just boot up one of the Resident Evil games, like, on a handheld, because that, like, if I've had a bad week at work or whatever, like, I can always boot up a select number of titles, and I'll be like, oh, it's like a warm blanket and a mug of hot cocoa, and that's what Resident Evil is.
Mm-hmm.
That was the benefit of having
Absolutely.
it portable. Is like, if I have a crap day and I'm 6 hours into my shift, I'm like, I'm playing Resident Evil for a couple hours.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. That's most of the time. I've streamed Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3 probably like 6 times each, and it's because when I feel like doing a stream and talking to people, but there has to be a game on in the background that I'm so familiar with, like mind, body, and soul, that I could play it in a coma and still do all right. Like it's always going to be a Resident Evil game. And when I used to, this is way back in the day, when I used to go on tour with my band, I had a PSP with me, and it was either Castlevania Symphony of the Night or Resident Evil 2. I might have played those 2 games in the years that I was touring, easy 20, 25 times each. Like, those are, because you have to pass the time, and why not pass the time with something that, just like you said, is like a old sweater you put on. It's just so comfortable and familiar that you could play it with your eyes closed and still have a great time.
Yeah. So, like, I guess, because for me it was kind of a similar thing to where, like, I was kind of whipping out my Vita at work when I started getting in, when I first got it, and I started, really playing that a little bit. And, at the previous job that I had, I was, like, extremely miserable because I had just come off of a job that I was just miserable from as well. And I was like, sitting here 8 hours a day, calling a bunch of people that are going to tell you no because they're thinking I'm trying to sell them health insurance, which that's not what I was I wasn't even selling anything. But, going from that and calling numbers that are generally blocked or dead, and not getting a response, and then hearing everybody else seeming like they got all this work and you just don't have seemingly anything to do, right? Being able to whip out the PS Vita and then just start playing Resident Evil 1, I feel like it's kind of like a great, like, I could literally play like a game that I enjoy playing, right, in a place that I typically would not be able to play a game, which is somewhere out in public, right? So I guess for me it was good to keep my mind off of being depressed for a little bit, especially when you're like dealing with like that long shift of like feeling like you're not really doing anything, and your job is making you miserable, I guess, as you're looking for something else to do and looking for a new job in that process.
Well, it's kind of interesting, like when this question got posed, everybody said the same thing, and it essentially had to do with classic Resident Evil versus, I mean, technically we all could be playing, the Switch port of RE4 or something like that, which I think only proves my point that classic RE is way better than
You see, I say the same thing, and I get called a crazy person by everybody.
You are crazy.
So,
For a different reason.
Yeah,
trust me, my comment section is a cool 50-50 split of people going like, yeah, I'm picking up what this guy's putting down, and other people being like, you're out of your fucking mind.
Now you see, I do have a Switch though, by the way, but if I had to take a Switch to work or whatever though, the game I would play on it the most would be Resident Evil 5. But that's my favorite game between the 3 trilogy. So yeah, that's my comfort game, by the way. So yeah, that'd be my choice. But most likely I will have my PSP and just play the classic games. Again, just like some fun, pick up, play, and go.
Yeah, there's one of the last few questions that we're kind of rolling down to, but there's a question related to like PlayStation Portable and PlayStation Vita in particular, which is like, there's kind of a reason as to why it was specifically for me, at least in this case, like classic RE. I'm sure if there was like a specific exclusive RE game that was on like the Vita that you could only play on the Vita, then my answer might have been different. But that's where I kind of felt like, yeah, this is what I could look to. I could play this game that's oddly enough, like old classic RE, PlayStation 1 RE, right? Cheesy, but like when you're really into it and like you start reading up on the notes and stuff like that, you could really like I hate to use the word, but like you could really like immerse yourself into that world.
Oh yeah, then you can read the novels in school and get made fun of. So that was really fun. Those S.D. Perry novels, I had all of them when I was younger, and I pulled one out, and someone was like, "Dude, are you serious?" I'm like, "Dude, I like the game. I'm sorry."
I remember I was in high school when a buddy let me borrow the Resident Evil 2 comic, and it was like the coolest fucking day. And I was in my, mid to not late teens, but like 16, 17, where I probably shouldn't be reading comic books based on video games in class, but there I fucking was reading about Barry Burton pumping hollow points into zombies in some kind of like weird Die Hard-esque situation.
I can imagine you getting called in class and just being like, yeah, so Barry Burton just whipped out a gat and just started mowing down zombies. That is what we're talking about, right, in class? I'm sorry, this is English class.
Don't worry, teacher. One day this is going to become a career for me. It's all good.
Hey, Harry, what'd you do your book report on? Well, let me tell you about Caliban Cove and Rebecca Chambers' adventures with a British spy.
I have the cover for that book just constantly. It will always be in my memory. I could draw it for you right now.
Now, I actually did that one time in literature class where I took a game script and I just changed the character's name and maybe load odds and ends to see if by chance the person's a gamer. That's grading my test. I actually did that. I got A+ on it.
Nice.
Game sister,
Easy
man.
class. Exactly. I tell you which literature is games.
I mean, it's technically.
Yeah, it tells a story, right? So, I mean, it is a form of literature.
I mean, if it's in written form and you can get it, fuck it.
I mean, they do have to write out they have to write out a storyboard and a story for it before even writing a script for it. So
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it kind of starts out as an essay first and foremost.
What I would give to be a fly on the wall when they were pitching RE6 and doing that initial storyboarding, just explosion. What? Okay.
The irony that the final boss in Leon's campaign is a giant fly.
That had to be killed with the power of the earth, with lightning harnessed from the clouds themselves. Jesus Christ, they were trying so hard to jump the shark. They're like, how much can we do with this game before it becomes parody? And then how much further can we go from there?
Yes.
I have to imagine there was somebody on that project that was like legitimate about it and was like, oh, this is super cool, and they were super into it. Like, when Tommy Wiseau was making The Room, like he's like, no, it's gonna be an amazing movie, and it just turned, because it doesn't feel like schlock for the sake of schlock. It feels like someone actually really liked the concepts and like really fought to get that stuff in the game, which makes it all the more satisfying playing it because it's so out of this world.
I don't know, man. I get a different feeling. I feel like what they were trying to do was anticipate what the market wanted, and I've made this argument so many times, but it's 100% our fault, because when RE4 came out, they weren't like, yeah, RE4's story is amazing. I love how it carries on the gameplay style of Resident Evil, but evolves it in a new way. Like game magazines at the time, and think pieces and reviews, they were all like fucking QuickTime events. Minecart chases, you know what I mean? There's a turret section. This is what people talked about. And then when they released Resident Evil 5, of course, we got more of those things. It was an evolution of that same thing. And when 6 came out, they're going, all right, listen, they love the QuickTime events. They absolutely love the action and the over-the-top nonsense. So let's go ahead and give them 3 evolutions of this in one leap. I think they were trying to really just predict market conditions there. And again, it's 100% our fault. We loved RE4, and we did. All of us did. We bought every version of it. I mean, do you have more than one version of RE4 in your house right now?
I do.
Shit, you're right.
I do.
We all do, of course.
Look, I could tell you, like, and I know this isn't like an RE4 podcast, but I could tell you exactly, like, I started RE4 on PS2, and since then, right, I've owned the PS3 port. I own two different versions of the PS3 port because I have the Japanese import. I have the PS4 port, and recently I got the PC port because the Seamless HD mod got completed. So I was like, I wasn't going to buy this game on PC, but that HD mod, I just had to, like.
Yeah, of course.
I do have a tendency to buy games anyway, though, but for the sake of the question here, yes, so, like, yeah, I do have multiple copies. First copy I ever bought was PS3, then got the PC version. I'm not sure if I bought it, so like that for me. And I have the PS4 version. And now recently I have the PC, not PC, PS2 version, because that's a collector's item. So yeah, you're not exactly wrong. I did buy the game multiple times.
You know what I mean? And imagine you're Capcom in that moment, and you have just put out a video game that people, I mean, I would say the average Resident Evil fan owns at the very least 2 versions of RE4. So if I was developing RE6 and I knew how well RE4 had sold and how RE5 for the longest time was the best-selling game Capcom has ever released in the history of being a company, I would probably also try to okay, we'll implement the stuff from RE5, but let's give them more. You know what I mean? And now obviously they fucked it up. It was a flawed execution, but I think the like logic was sound going into it.
Well, yeah, and I mean,
yes, but even still though, even 4 and 5 were, by some measure, especially 4's case, in one regard, was still fairly grounded in its,
comparatively,
style.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, with 6 like, are you guys on some good cocaine or something? I could use some of that.
It's funny because when I covered RE5 in my review, I mentioned that like I feel like RE5 is a more grounded RE game compared to RE4 because of it being more serious and more it having less to do with like paranormal stuff. And I do eventually want to cover RE6, so I might point out the fact that like technically is more grounded, but at the same time it's also going into like this batshit insane territory where you literally have a guy who's a transformer in the game. Like literally he's a transformer. Like I can't even make that up. Like so,
at will. That's what does it. Like he can do it at will. That's what really does it.
But so anyway, because I think we had a good long talk about that because we went from talking about what's the appeal of handheld titles to talking about some action RE, which
yeah, that's usually how it goes for me.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's good because it's giving me ideas for like future RE podcasts that we can do for sure. So definitely giving me some ideas here. Actually, while we're on it, why don't I have Divic read off number 7 here? If he's here.
I don't think he's available right now. Your turn, though.
Okay. Or Jared, if you want to take on number 7 here.
You got it. Do you think with platforms like the Nintendo Switch or Steam Deck, we'll never truly see a handheld-specific Resident Evil, given that we're in an era of hybrid platforms that are essentially portable consoles / PCs? Yeah, I think sadly we are moving towards more homogenization, I believe is the term. It is shitty, but yeah, I think we're moving towards a one game released on every single platform, and each platform will more or less perform similarly, like, give or take a small margin of variation, which really sucks. Like we were talking about earlier, I really like the SNES and Genesis era where you could pick up a video game released on SNES, and then so I lived in a household with my cousins. After Hurricane Andrew, we all lived in Miami. We all had to share a house together because all of our shit got blown up. And I had a Genesis, my cousins had a Super Nintendo, and we would rent the same game expecting, like, hell yeah, it would be fun to see how they're different and stuff. And they would just be different games. And I remember being blown away by that, and I don't think we'll ever see that again now.
Let's see, I partially disagree on the notion of like Capcom doesn't have not key not stranger English to doing like exclusive type games on a particular platform. Most recent example is Monster Hunter Rise. That game is built for handheld in mind. Now, granted, Switch is hybrid, right? Though, but the core appeal of the Switch is handheld. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Proven that. So, like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for us to get another handheld Resident Evil title, though. But the question is, though, will the Switch be the appropriate, platform for it? Because no, for Monster Hunter, though, it's been mostly Sony's Nintendo, recognition. In contrast to, say, Resident Evil, it's been, mostly PlayStation and Xbox PC, recognition in contrast to the Nintendo side of things. So, would it be a good fit for that platform? But
I hope you're right. Honestly, I hope we do see more.
Well, time will tell. Sony, maybe you can make another handheld, and don't screw it up.
They never will. They'll never do it again.
Vita
failed so spectacularly, and Sony is already not a company who's trying to take. So their hardware sector just always fails. Like their TVs are fucking terrible in the market right now. They're way behind. Samsung. Back when I was installing, Samsung had them beat by a country mile, and their Blu-ray players weren't doing quite as well. Their home theater equipment was way behind in the market. So when it comes to hardware, Sony's not going to take any.
I don't get why they make Blu-ray players when they have consoles that play Blu-ray stuff, right? Now that would have been a great selling point for people to get the, let's say the PS3, 4, and now 5.
Yeah. Oh, you mean like the same selling point that the PS2 had, because it was a cheap DVD player. So.
It sort of was. It sort of was in the higher end market. I used to install home theater systems for very, very like high dollar clientele. And when we were putting together a proposal for a project, it actually made more sense financially to buy PS3s as Blu-ray players and put them in every room versus a dedicated Blu-ray player that had the feature set that the PS3 has. It just made more sense. So it sort of was like that, but it wasn't anywhere near like how popular the PS2 became.
Yeah, I was literally about to say the same thing. The PS3 was the cheapest Blu-ray player at the time, and here you are. You said it was thinking.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like, it's kind of weird how like Microsoft does not try to jump on that market.
They're smart for doing that actually.
I know, but
actually spoke on that, saying like, it's definitely not a market we want to compete in because they barely compete in the home console scene. So horrible, oof.
Right. I'm just thinking like, it's kind of interesting how they've never at least attempted it once in their entire like company history as far as like going into, as far as like their gaming market side of things go, right? Because at least I would think, right? Because they sell like Microsoft tablets and stuff like that, right? Like, hey, why not? Like we've done tablets. Why not do like a handheld that we could release, and then maybe strike a deal with like Japanese companies such as Capcom to release exclusive games on our platform. But then again, nowadays, right, it wouldn't work, right?
I think Microsoft's even less likely to do it than Sony. So Microsoft treats the Xbox brand, I think like Google treats YouTube. YouTube is not necessarily profitable, but I think it's like the number 2 search engine on planet Earth, traffic-wise. So they can't get rid of it. Like you can't lose that footing in the marketplace. But at the same time, you're probably not going to. You're probably not going to devote a lot of time and attention towards improving it if those improvements cost money. And I think Microsoft takes a similar stance with the Xbox, where it's like, okay, we're known for Xbox now, and we sort of have to continue this brand. But I don't think we're going to go any further than we have to with it.
Well,
right.
See, like in the case of the Xbox being profitable, I think the first time, if the only time, they don't release numbers anymore with the Xbox, so it's hard to keep up with stuff. It's been profitable when the Xbox One, either first or second year was the thing, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But historically speaking, Xbox always bleeds money. But things
Yeah.
like Microsoft can actually take the hit because it's fucking Microsoft. They're a trillion-dollar company now. Same thing with Game Pass. You know, they always take a hit, but they're stealing the market share of the thing they try to go for. The reason why they won't go for handhelds because again, Nintendo was the king of handhelds. Like there's no disputing that. Sony is number 2 though, depending on your ass. You know, so there's
Yeah.
no way they can put their hands in the market. Like I know that you mentioned tablets, but no, sorry, that's my fan.
Oh, I was like, am I hearing nails being clipped?
Yeah, he's
No,
got a
that's
foot
fine,
propped
man.
up, and he's just
He's just going ham.
Damn straight.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt. That's why I texted you.
Yeah, you did. You did. Yeah, I love my train of thought.
Oh, you were talking about how why you personally didn't think that Microsoft would do it because of tablets.
So they did tablets, right?
Uh-huh.
But tablets are not the same as
right.
Which completely different
and
market. Honestly.
Really and truly too, it's a losing market right now because we've reached a point where the expectation of what how a console should perform, we can do that hardware-wise, but we can't cool that hardware at a small enough form factor to where it's portable to carry around. Like I feel like any bigger than the Switch is just unfeasible as a portable console, and that's probably why the Switch took that hybrid console and home approach, because realistically speaking, I mean, I have a Switch. I don't take it anywhere because it is, I mean, you can put a Game Boy Advance in your pocket. You know, you got to be wearing some Jinkos to carry a Switch around. I think to keep a portable form factor, we're not there yet with efficiency as far as like cooling. To have something that could relatively sort of kind of compete with what's on the market now, I don't think we're there yet. I mean, the Steam Deck exists and that's awesome. Again, I wouldn't call it necessarily portable. It's portable in the sense that like my monitor is technically portable. I just have to pick it up and take it somewhere.
Right. I guess, well, the reason why I kind of brought that up, right, is because, we do have things like the Switch and the Steam Deck, right, and, kind of my mindset of it is like, hey, like, it's kind of interesting how, Microsoft hasn't tried to attempt that. Obviously with Sony, likely they might not do another handheld PlayStation. They might. We don't know. That remains to be seen, but at the moment it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, right? But the reason I bring it up is that I think it's kind of one of those things where, we are seeing these kind of more hybrid console handhelds where, kind of like how you mentioned earlier, Jared, where it's like, the uniqueness of like having that handheld version of RE game, right? Or like any game for that matter, is not really going to be there because it's going to be almost on par with the console version, unless if they do something more specific for those specific platforms.
Well, and you also have to take into account too that mobile gaming accounts for a huge portion of people who technically play games, even though a lot of that is very, it's Candy Crush or
we don't
whatever.
count those as gamers.
well, no. But here's the thing, though: is it doesn't matter what you think; it matters what investors think. So if there's going to be a major Resident Evil handheld title, I bet you it's going to be a mobile game more than anything.
Yeah, a gotcha game, honestly, which they have Tekken for that.
Listen, the person that's listening in on the call right now is going to like patent the idea of a Resident Evil gacha game, and it's going to be your fault that you said it.
Don't give them the idea.
So
Look, we have put pachinko slots for Resident Evil, right? I mean, honestly, I'm surprised Capcom has not made a gacha game for Resident Evil. Like, come on.
I haven't seen them
fact,
yet,
that will
but Resident
kill
Evil's
money.
not as popular as it used to be.
Oh,
I will keep you guys in the know, though. I'll let you know when they show up.
You're walking down the street and you're going to see the pachinko machine and go, "Oh my god, it's only a matter of time."
Oh yeah, I mean they I think they recently came out with like was it like RE2 remakes pachinko? I know they have like a Devil May Cry 5 special edition pachinko they recently made too, but
Let's see. I need to find out if there's a Pachi slot machine. I want to know if I'm mad about this yet.
Yeah, if you see a Castlevania one or a Silent Hill one, let me know.
The ones
that
with
still
the
makes me-
I was just gonna
really
say
quick.
yeah, go
I
on.
was gonna say the one that makes me the saddest. I just got to see the side by side the other day is the Metal Gear Solid 3 one, where they redid a lot of the cinematics in Fox Engine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pachinko machine specifically, and it like I could feel my soul dripping away as I watched the video. It was so saddening.
You know, but it's financially, it makes sense. It's like I haven't
It does.
seen. It's so like rare for me to see like an empty Pachi slot parlor. It's almost crazy. The people stay in there for hours at a time and just dump money into these things.
Yeah. Like I was gonna say too, the thing that kind of saddens me with like those pachinko games in particular is that like they'll include cutscenes and dialogue that you don't even see in the games, and then you're like, well, why wasn't this in the game? Like, why wasn't this like something you could add into an additional mode? You know,
Don't get me started on that, man.
Devil May Cry, I'm looking at you. Like, yeah. So, but anyway, Divic, why don't I get you to read off number 8, and we could kind of go on from there here.
Alright, he's busy, Dom.
Damn. Okay. I could take on number 8. That's fine. Do you think that Capcom missed an opportunity to release Resident Evil titles on the PSP, or even more titles on the PlayStation Vita, given that Revelations 2 was the only game to be released on the platform?
Yes, 100% yes, especially for the PSP, considering that had like a nice market share. Vita, I do not blame Capcom for not trying with that one, because you know, it's the Vita, right? And Sony technically, I think, paid for that port on the Vita. I might be wrong about that, because I know they published it, but I don't know
The full
exact
extent of
review
it.
on that. Yeah. So if anything though, they probably could have ported freaking Resident Evil 4 or 5 on the Vita, you know. Granted, the frame rate might have been so good because Revelations 2 frame rate is pretty bad, but come on, like it would have been great. They had that thing on the go. If they secure like other things on top of you know, having good prices, you know, the Vita would have been a great machine for Resident Evil.
Yeah, it really would have. The Vita could have been so good. I think had Sony not have spent so much money on gimmicks because they thought like, oh, we need touch. We absolutely have back touch. Yeah, we gotta have that.
Yeah, I don't blame them for that because that was the age of when people thought tablets were going to take over, which obviously it hasn't.
Yeah.
But sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like what they were trying to do is the same thing they did with RE6. They were just trying to head the market off at the pass, essentially. Like, here's where we think it's going. We're gonna make a prediction here and spend a lot of money. Hopefully, we're right, and just they did not turn out to be right.
You know, oddly enough, I kind of want to see like the like fans maybe make like their own games off of like official dev kits and shit, kind of like how the Dreamcast community keeps making Dreamcast games.
I would pay top dollar for something like that, man.
Like,
I don't think Sony gives out dev kits anymore since it stopped supporting and taking in games for the Vita. So the most you would get is homebrews, which is technically piracy in that regard, you know?
yeah, but you know,
There has to be a way. You have to, because people do sell dev kits on eBay and stuff. It's cost prohibitive. It would cost so
probably,
fucking
yeah.
much.
But like,
once hardware dies, like the Vita has, it's not too. Man, I'm looking at the Vita dev kit right now, and it looks so fucking cool.
I'll
Damn.
post that in the DMs here, so
Hell
we
yeah.
can see that. Because the only reason why I was kind of bringing that up too is that like you know, Capcom missed out on an opportunity to do like more of these like handheld ports. Because as far as we see, most of the ports that they were doing for handheld stuff, it was coming to the Nintendo DS or 3DS, right? Oh, so it's just a beefy PSP.
Yeah, with like cool extra ports on the bottom.
That's
I
huge.
love it.
Yeah, like I think that like You know, it would have been great to see like Capcom put like more like maybe even just specific God, that pains me. Yeah, I think it would have been really cool to see like very like specific ports of like maybe games we've already gotten right for like the Vita or even the PSP, kind of like how we got for the Nintendo DS, right? You know, even then too, like an original RE game, like maybe they could have revived Resident Evil Portable because we were talking about that earlier, right? And put that on the Vita because maybe you know it was a little bit too ambitious, but we don't really have all that information, right? Or at least I don't have all that information. But yeah, it is kind of disappointing to think that like you know that was never really a platform that they attempted to focus on for either PlayStation Portable or PlayStation Vita.
You know what the saddest part is though, is that it might have taken maybe 2 releases from a major developer like Capcom or like Konami at the time to radically alter the course of history and have the Vita become a successful piece of hardware. It would have, you know, like you're saying, they could have released a Vita specific Resident Evil game, and if we had that plus one, you know, something that was good, a project you could only get on Vita, those 2 things I think would have saved the hardware, because then other developers would have said, okay, all right, if Resident Evil's on here, maybe I'll start putting my stuff on here.
Or here's a thought. Granted, I know the Outbreak series technically, you know, has only recently kind of exploded in popularity. Like fans are kind of realizing, hey, this is actually not that bad of a game now that you could play online with it. Imagine if they put both Outbreak games on the Vita with a more streamlined invite system.
Dude, Outbreak on the go, that would be sick, actually.
Like,
granted, that'd be a lot of stolen Vitas in a while, though, but that'd be great.
Right?
That could have done it, dude. That could have been it.
That would have been like the perfect way to revive Outbreak and also address a lot of the issues that both games had. You know, because given the fact that that game had come out during the PS2 era, where like online gaming was kind of still in its infancy.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have taken a radical amount of effort to take Outbreak and turn it into something that worked in a more modern network framework that allowed people a little more communication during gameplay, maybe, or something. You know, you wouldn't have to, this wouldn't be like a multi-year project. You know, you would just modify the source code on the PS2, you know, tweak some models, maybe add a few polygons here or there or something. But we had stuff like MGS3 running on the Vita. It's definitely doable for sure. That could have been so fucking cool.
Yeah, like, and then you know, just thinking about like just having the online work, right? Like that would have just been amazing, because then you wouldn't have to jump through all these like current hoops and hassles just to get it to run properly online. Because like, man, I was playing Outbreak with like Brandon a couple of months back, and like it's fun. Like once you actually get people like and a whole party set up, and you get like your strats going for like which outcome you're gonna go for the scenario, but it is a pain in the ass to remember like which password and like is sign in that you had set up, what is the actual lobby you're joining and whatnot. So like definitely if yeah, I guess you couldn't necessarily call it an HD remaster of like Outbreak 1 and 2, but or even if they had just put both games into one cart, right, and just called it out like just Outbreak Complete Edition or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Like that would have been amazing. Like,
I totally agree.
Or
I missed the complete lack of communication you had with people in that game. Like you had to use, what was it? It was like your analog stick, right? In order to like pre-cached phrases.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, I talked to a guy who was sort of active during the early days of Outbreak Online, and people had sort of decided on alternative meanings for it. So like, go get it meant like second floor, or you know what I mean. They had a way of communicating through that sort of weird. What would you call that? Just like that call out system, because like you said, it was predetermined stuff, and they had gotten together and said, okay, this means that. So when you were in an online game and you heard someone say go get it, it's like, oh shit, okay, it's on the second floor. So
the I will say, quick side note, fond memories of that game was in high school, being a little on a certain substance, and running to get the nail gun and nail gunning the first door to lock people in with zombies, and they have to kick it open.
Oh, yeah.
And just running with giggling
You're
like a
in
child.
I've done
then
it on
the-
accident before. I was never quite so.
it was, and again, it was only at certain times, but I would just be like, you know what, fuck these people, and just do that. And I thought it was fun. I was giggling like a little toddler. It was so funny. But
No, you weren't wrong.
You know, I feel like a lot of people would end up breaking their PS Vitas during the hospital segment when you're getting chased by the axe murderer. Because I remember when I was playing with Brandon, like there were times where we would literally like dart past each other, and like the fucking axe murderer would be like right behind one of us. Like I feel like that's the only time Resident Evil's had like not necessarily a pursuer, but like kind of like that what is it, like almost like a Friday the 13th or like Dead by Daylight sort of vibe, where it's like, you know, 4 players versus the killer type of deal, because you don't really have a whole lot of ammo to work with in that scenario.
Yeah.
But
I will say one thing too. I'm almost positive Outbreak does not scale for multiplayer depending on how many people you have. I think there's a single player like difficulty scale, and then there's multiplayer, and then that's just it. So if you play with 2 people, you're dealing with the amount of shit that they would throw at, you know, 4 people or whatever.
That sounds like what they do with Monster Hunter prior to World Iceborne, when they make changes. You just get your single player, and you got your multiplayer threshold, which for the earlier titles though was fun. Are you done?
yeah, I think we're good here, unless if anybody else had anything to say about the PSP or Vita regarding RE ports here.
Make the Vita great again.
Wouldn't that be something?
Solid. I can get behind that.
Alrighty. Brandon, you want to read off number 9 here for me then?
I could. If you had to come up with an original concept / game for a handheld title, what would it be? Like, throw out your random ideas.
Oh man.
Gangsters in space. I don't care.
Damn, that'd be tough. You know, I think it would be easy to say like a Revelations 3, you know. Just given the fact that Revelations started out as a handheld title, you know, it kind of just goes full circle.
Honestly, I see that being more of a console title now. Given
the second one and the port for the first one, yeah. But, yeah, if not Revelations 3, I feel like maybe just an original game based off of like one of their cut concepts for like really any of the RE games.
Actually, I got a concept though. Once you're done, Dom, I think you guys might like this one.
Yeah.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys know how Tall Oaks in Resident Evil 6 in China, and they got fucked up basically by the sea riders, right?
Yeah.
So imagine an outbreak game evolving around, you have actual survivors that were in the middle of all this, so like Tall Oaks, and you trying to find your way out of the city in time. Basically how you saw the survivors in the church, but take that concept though and just make it into a game where you actually find survivors and you actually leave the city, you know, I don't know, unscathed, whatever. Similar to how you have the original Outbreak games, and of course the same thing we can have like China and wherever that place is in Europe, but I think the place was evacuated, so I don't think that'll be possible. I guess what I'm getting is like take key areas that had lots of civilians in the previous Resident Evil titles and make an Outbreak game around those areas, different scenarios. So you take Raccoon City again, maybe remix that to Tall Oaks, take China, or take Terra Grigia from Revelations 1,
Ooh, there you go.
So yeah,
I mean,
take
they
those and
did
just
mention
turn
in,
outbreaks. Oh, sorry, good.
why I like it, it is so it being in one game is one thing, but they did also it is part of the main story in Rev 2, as far as what's her face, Barry's partner. What's that girl's name?
Oh, Natalia, I think it was.
Was it Natalia? Yeah, I
Talking
think
about
you're
Barry's
right. Yeah,
partner, the little girl.
yeah. So I feel like it's more cemented now.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
imagine
Yeah, it's
escaping
a little bitch.
that hellhole. All those
Mm.
hunters around, like Jesus.
Oh god.
I honestly, I really like that part of Rev 1. Like,
I hated it in Inferno mode. I hate that. I hate that.
I never
chapter.
played Inferno mode for sure.
Oh,
I
be
like
glad
any
you
Resident
haven't.
Evil game that lets me be present during like an outbreak, you know, a BOW outbreak. It's just, man, I love that so much.
Yeah, we definitely need more of those CBs.
It, you know what, too? I think like that would lend itself some like that idea with like Terra Grigia for like having an outbreak game set in the Revelations series, like somewhere in that timeline. That works out a little bit more to its favor because you could come up with like it would probably be excuse me, it would probably be easier to come up with like original like BOW and monster designs for a game like that, because there's really not a whole lot that they showed off there other than hunters, right? So you could maybe come up with like something completely unique that we didn't see in Revelations. Granted, I know like you could maybe make the same argument with like a outbreak game that's set in the RE6 timeline, but with RE6 the amount of monsters, right?
Sorry to cut you off though. It would be realistic though, because you're not everywhere in those cities, right? So
True.
it could be, say Leon's here, right, and you have a group of survivors here, right? There's things that you don't see as one character or the other. That would actually work out.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I just think that like it might be a little bit more difficult for them to come up with ideas given how many different like monsters and BOWs that we had in RE6 in comparison to that one segment in Revelations 1.
Yeah, true. I think this would be the case where they need to think outside the box. Hell, take inspiration from like Outbreak with the zoo. Do something that crazy. I guess. I'm not sure if China has a lot of zoos, whatever, but they do have a lot of pandas. So imagine tackling against sea fires affected pandas.
Okay, I just thought of something extremely cancerous. You guys are gonna fucking hate me for this idea, but I love this idea from a lore standpoint. So we had zombies in Resident Evil 6 that would be kind of red and they would turn into bloodshots, right? They would mutate like midway through after some damage, right? So no, because you brought up the zoo, right? So imagine going into the zoo and you have to go up against like kind of like an outbreak where you had to go up against the lion or the elephant, right? Imagine one of those things going and like becoming like a bloodshot variant of that, right?
Yeah, that does sound fun as a boss fight, but as a common enemy,
just imagine how fucking cancerous that would be, right?
I mean, that would make for an awesome persistent enemy like Nemesis, because you couldn't kill the elephant mutate zombie, right? So it would just constantly be like you could only just barely get away from it.
You couldn't kill it unless if you had the elephant gun with the specific
Can we just talk
rounds.
about having an elephant gun in a Resident Evil game, please?
Yes. Yeah, you only get, I think, a total in that whole scenario. It's like a total of like 3 rounds that you could ever find around that entire scenario. If at all, because I think you can miss them for sure.
I've never used it before.
Yeah, it's it has a lot of kick. So if you've ever seen an actual elephant gun being fired, like that is the one time I would say like RE got like recoil like done right in an RE game.
Mm-hmm.
But
I love the idea of an elephant gun in a Resident Evil game. Honestly though, I feel like if if we're gonna do like a mobile Resident Evil title, I would rather see, and I think this is probably Capcom's reasoning too. We're gonna do something different. You know what I mean? I would like to see a radical change, like, with Gaiden.
Yeah.
No, they did not get it right, but the idea sort of kind of works. You know what I mean? I was playing through Gaiden, and there are elements there that I think could have worked. The combat was pretty okay. It could have used some tweaks, right? But a Resident Evil sort of art. I mean, Gaiden was kind of a Resident Evil RPG in a few different ways. Man,
You
I
know
would
what?
love to have seen something radically different.
You know what? And I'm sorry to interrupt here, but like, Gaiden kind of reminds me of Capcom's Sweet Home to an extent, with the way that the character movement is and also how the combat comes up. I know it's kind of like a weird kind of comparison, but it kind of has those vibes, at least to me. That's kind of the impression that I got with it. Sure. I always kind of used to joke about this too. I would kind of dig a RPG Resident Evil. I feel like that is a missed opportunity on Capcom's end.
Yeah,
I mean, I've always been like the hardcore like Resident Evil purist, but when we're talking spin-offs, go for it, man. Arcade action RPG, let's do it.
I think me and Dom were actually talking about this some time ago on another podcast we did, where both of us would agree that Resident Evil as an RPG would actually be lit because they had a foundation for it. Someone to do it right. Because to technicality, they've done RPG mechanics with the Revelations games via the raid modes, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's just will they? Obviously, the answer would be no. But just imagine, like I don't know, like a strategy RPG, take turns RPG, or stuff like that. That honestly would be fun.
Yeah, I think it could work. I really do.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, sorry. I'd keep on going back between this meeting. Are we still on 8?
We're on 9, actually.
Resident Evil SRPG, or like a Final Fantasy Tactics meets
We
Resident Evil.
literally were just talking about an
exactly.
RPG.
It would be perfect. I mean, look, if Ghost Recon can do it, Resident Evil can do it, hands down.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right, because I was on 3DS, and everybody loved that game.
And it was amazing.
Oh,
it's still
you guys got to tell me about that later for sure.
But dude, it's cool.
Yeah, I gotta take a look into it for sure, because like as far as like Tom Clancy stuff goes, like I definitely want to get into that universe as well, but like that's neither here or there. But yeah, I don't know, like just the idea of having like an RPG RE game and then like forming up like party members and like setting them up with like specific weapons. Like imagine like typically in an RE game, right, you could have any weapon you want in your inventory, right? You just got to be mindful of your inventory space and your ammo, right? But then imagine like having an actual RPG set up where you have a party, right, of like 3 additional characters with you, and each character can be like set for like a specific weapon type and ammo type and whatnot, and maybe like particular roles like a medic class or like a more defensive class or something like that, right? Like I think that's a really good idea waiting to happen that Capcom is just, at least in my opinion, sleeping on.
Yeah, I think, I mean, strategy RPG, turn-based RPG, action RPG, I think it 100% could work within Resident Evil. I think the Metal Gear Solid, what was it, Metal Gear Solid Acid on the, what was it, PSP?
Yeah, that's the series.
Card-based strategy RPG. I didn't think it would work as well as it did.
Yeah, but it does though. It's like a really good.
Yeah, it can be done. And like I was saying, when we're talking spin-offs for Resident Evil, it's sky's the limit. You could do it all. Yeah, I would love to see, even the Resistance and shit. Like on paper, I think that idea could definitely work. They botched the execution for sure, but I would love to see any kind of a game done in the Resident Evil universe. I think fuck man, I just want more Resident Evil content. I want more shit happening in that universe, and I want different ways to engage with that shit.
Yeah, Like, and you know, thinking about like Resistance and some of the other like spin-offs they've done, it's just kind of like, I feel like it's kind of a weird thing, because it's like when Capcom tries to do something different with the RE, it's either hit or miss. So I guess you can't really go wrong with taking another RE game per se, even if it ends up being a miss, because you at least have the mainline series to fall back on and anything else that they really put the most effort into. But you know, obviously I would prefer that they have a hit every time they come out with a new and interesting idea for RE, or just even something that is a spin-off. Because then again, I wouldn't want them to do something like Umbrella Corps. And
You know, honestly though,
Yeah.
Umbrella Corps can be fun. Like, man, I've played it with friends before, and obviously, you know, you play anything with friends, it can be fun. But Umbrella Corps, it could totally work, and it wouldn't take much. But I think with Capcom, the reason why a lot of these Resident Evil spin-offs lately have been failing so hard is because they haven't put any effort into them, and they farm them out to other studios. And you know, as soon as the game doesn't do well, they're like, all right, can it? This is it. We're done. If they would have dedicated like an actual team at Capcom and not used Unity for Umbrella Corps, you know what I mean? Like, if they would have dedicated actual time and effort, put it into an engine that they understood, it certainly could have worked. But they would have to actually pay attention to the project and have someone they trusted doing it, instead of farming it out like Konami does Silent Hill.
yeah, I mean, like with
real quick though,
Yeah.
like, the biggest issue with Capcom is that they rely too heavily on multiplayer, but in particular on PvP. Like, their strongest suit, like the game modes that everybody love, is raid mode and mercenaries. You know, when it's called. If they just focus on those strong points, give us a cooperative experience, multiplayer title, then that would probably do a hell of a lot better than, say, with Resistance, which is a Dead by Daylight clone, and what the hell Rebirth is.
Another
Dead, I think
PvP
that's what
game.
Rebirth is.
yeah, or that.
Revised.
That game is never coming out, and still
No.
being advertised
Never
on.
gonna happen.
And it's still advertised on Village boxes, so they eventually have to bring it out. But like, I don't think it ever will come out. Like,
Almost a year or two, by the way. You know,
Yeah.
just saying.
yeah. Actually, didn't Village come out like in May last year or something like that, or
Oh
was
my
it
God,
March?
it's been a year already.
Yeah,
That is how forgettable Village is. Everybody played Village. Just I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened during it, and I made a video on it.
Oh, well, I could tell you a whole essay about the game. But hey, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It was fun, but it was like a popcorn game. Like I was just
Yeah. That was my when I made my video. It was just like, this is a really fun game, but that's all it is. It's just that.
Yeah. That might be something we could talk about in the future as well. But yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, I think I agree with Brandon in that sense, because like, you know, like a cooperative RE game, like, and thinking about this in the sense of the, you know, the subject of the podcast, right? Like, that would have been great too. Just an original cooperative, like, handheld RE game would have been great. Because like, whenever they do these spin-offs, like I'll start back with like Operation Raccoon City, for example. Like, you know, they outsourced it to a dev that wasn't really known for making good third-person shooters. Then, you know, skip over to Umbrella Corps, and then they decide, hey, we're going to do it ourselves. But Capcom isn't really known for making, you know, like these Twitch shooters, like first-person or third-person shooters. And not to mention, too, it seems like, you know, based on how buggy Umbrella Corps is, that it had even less time than Operation Raccoon City to really be fully developed. And kind of going off of what, like, you were saying, Jared, like, I think their biggest flaw of, like, you know, them, like, just dropping it after it fails, like, with a game like that, especially with, like, how most shooters are going these days, where they're being constantly updated over the course of several years, like, it's just kind of a weird thing of, like, hey, why didn't you just try to fix the game, actually update it, and give more reasons for people to actually give it a try and maybe try to, you know, recoup on the fact that not many people played it at launch, because, you know, it can happen. It just, if they put in the effort for it. So yeah, it's just kind of a, and then with the other stuff too, like with Reverse and Resistance, because they keep outsourcing to Neobards. And I don't know how you guys feel about Neobards in particular, but like me personally, I feel like Neobards Entertainment, despite kind of doing so on their remasters for Capcom remasters, they're a better team to remaster games than they are to make original games, based off of the track record that I've seen so far.
Well, I would say this though, like it's more so the fault Capcom, because you know they keep trying to make their games being released day and date with another title. So I think their talent is, honestly is being wasted on how they're doing the Resident Evil stuff, whereas as opposed to, you know, making an actual original title or whatever franchise or new IP. So I think it'd be better suited if they actually just step away from Resident Evil, at least have another team to do another game that is not Resident Evil and not a remaster.
Honestly, what I think would be a good idea, especially with the House of the Dead remake that just came out or whatever, just remake, you know, do a little bit of touch up or whatever, re-release those light gun shooters that came out for Resident Evil. That'd be kind of fun, right?
Oh my god, just the thought of a fucking, oh, damn it. I would love to see Gun Survivor get a proper real life, like Dead Aim. Please give it to me. Man. Currently,
do a, you know, the Resident Evil 4 pack and put those, you know, light gun games in there. Do a little bit of remake for them. You know, touch them up. All you need to do is just touch them up a bit. And it'd be like solid goal. I would buy a Switch for that. That'd be great.
I got another idea here for you, because you know VR is kind of starting to pick up. Put those games on VR, right? Because not only do you have the motion controls that you would have had with, you know, light gun controls, right? But now you're able to play those games in first person in VR, because, you know, we've already kind of had that with like RE7, and potentially in the future we might get that with Village, because I'm assuming Capcom will patch that in whenever PlayStation VR 2 comes out, right? And just kind of go off of that. Like, that would be, I know this is kind of way off into the discussion of outside of handheld games, but like,
well, no, because you could argue that the Quest 2 is technically handheld, because it's not corded down. You don't need a computer or anything like that. It's all proprietary, which Resident Evil 4 on that plays like a dream.
Okay, so that's something I didn't know.
Yeah, and so the modded stuff on there is great. Like I played Doom 3 in VR, and that's like one of the scariest things I've ever played, because that game is laughable when you're playing it. Like it's really immersive, but you know, it's not scary, but it's incredibly scary in VR. So like just a Gun Survivor game in VR would be great. And Resident Evil 4 has genuinely terrifying moments in VR.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I really need to get on the VR train. I am so late to the fucking party.
It's that good. It's so great.
Okay, this might be technically unrelated though, but you guys mentioned Unreals, right? I'm surprised that they didn't do another one already, because now they have 4, like you guys mentioned, 5 and 6. Like those would have been actually pretty good Unreal games to have.
Yeah,
I thought maybe original stories, like they always do.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Well, the only thing with 4 though is that you don't have a partner that could shoot. So how would they do that for like?
Not true, because they could actually change it up and have Ada be your partner.
Ooh, there we go.
Okay.
Either that or have Luis be your partner up to the point where he dies and then Ada takes his place.
Fair enough. Yeah,
they could do it. I mean, it wouldn't be any different from having Chris and Jill go through the mansion together, you know?
Exactly, because it's not canon in a way, right?
Right, unless if they do, unless if they do like an original story to go through like both of the previous games.
Oh yeah, I mean, I expected them to do original content, sure enough, but just particularly just for like 4, 5, and 6 though, like obviously just gonna be retelling of what's already been established.
Right.
So don't take it too seriously when it comes to the canonicity of things.
Unless if you go off of what was his name?
Peter Fabiano.
Peter Fabiano. Yeah, everything is canon. So by virtue, that means nothing is canon.
I'll be down with that. I'll be down with that for Resident Evil 1 and Umbrella Chronicles, because I am more cool with the idea of Jill and Chris going through the mansion together and separate, because that makes the most logical sense, honestly. But whatever. Everything's canon. It don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think like yeah, I wish I would have known that about the quest
honestly,
earlier.
that's probably the best thing so far is like bring the on rails Chronicles games back. You know,
Yeah.
we have the content there, and I think people would still play it because going back and playing those games, you know, past the crazy camera wobble in Darkside Chronicles,
Ugh.
super fun. I really like if there was a mod to decrease that, it would be such a fun experience. And Umbrella Chronicles is super fun too. It's a little touchy with the hitboxes, but you know, again, that's something you wouldn't have to dedicate a lot of effort towards making.
Well, they could fix that easily with Porco, which, by the way, those are the last 2 games that has some canonicity to them that haven't been ported yet. So those games would be great for the Switch, considering the drive controls and whatnot.
Yeah,
and then maybe
for sure.
VR for the PS4 and PS5. Like, come on, easy money.
Yeah.
And if you're using the little nunchucks, I mean, you hook it up to a TV and you can use it light guns, right? Like that's how that whole thing works.
Oh, you can use a light gun if you want, though, but you don't have to. But
Okay,
it's
well, you can crouch over a tiny screen then on a bus with a friend and like shoot zombies, and it's fine.
yeah. Like,
You know, since you brought that up too, side note, I've always wanted to play RE5 with the light gun on PS3 because that was a feature.
I did not like it, but it was an experience.
I don't know why. Like I remember they advertised that that accessory for the PlayStation Move controller, where it was like basically an actual like modeled after like an MP5, so it had like the slap this fucking slap cocking handle or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why, I just really fucking wanted it. So I've always wanted to play RE5 that way, just as a one-time thing, you know. Anyway, I think we've talked about this quite a bit and kind of, I don't know. This podcast has been kind of all over the place, but I think it works out, right? So
That tends to happen when I'm on board.
that's all right. As long as we're all having fun, that's the main thing, right? While I have you here, Divic, before you end up running off again on me, why don't we get you to read off number 10 here?
Number 10. To end off, which handheld title would you like to see return? Remake, re-release, new title? And I think I already definitely spoke to that point. Lycan games would be really cool to re-release on handhelds. To see something like the original remake put onto, obviously handhelds are, like we were talking about earlier, it's more this like kind of hybrid thing. But seeing the original remake get some kind of touch-up or like some kind of exclusivity just for fun, throwing some costumes or throwing like some neat stuff for the motion controls or something, that would be kind of neat. But seeing as how the age of handhelds is kind of gone, I don't know. Honestly, it's kind of a tough question.
Well, as for a re-release though, Deadly Silence definitely needs a re-release because
absolutely.
it's stuck on like 20-year-old hardware. Like, come on. Same thing for Mercenaries 3D. Like, if anything, Mercenaries needs a sequel or a ground-up remake because Capcom's missing the ball in that game in particular.
I think
You know what? I'll tell you one thing right now. The guy who classic RE Mods on Twitter, who is doing the Resident Evil Survivor, what is he calling it? Resident Evil Survivor Redux or something like that. And he's literally making Survivor a Resident Evil game. Like you can play through it like you would a classic RE game, and it works so fucking well. I bet you $10 he could take the PC release of RE1, mod in the content from the DS release, and release that on like console, on PC, whatever. It could be done. I'm telling you right now. If we can get his ear on this, oh fuck.
Yeah, because I retweeted a project earlier today about RE1, because somebody's working on like an HD port for that for PC, which I could definitely see that happening, especially again since we mentioned like modding communities like really good about stuff like that. But like I was thinking more like as far as like what they could do, you know, in terms of like a game that I'd like to see whether it, be put on another handheld or it's coming off of a handheld, like Mercenaries 3D. I'd love to see them just remaster that, make it a 1080p 60 FPS and apply the motion control so you don't have to have like awkward button prompts or ways to hold the DS basically, because you have to do some weird stuff to be able to move and shoot in that game essentially. So like I think like some updates to that game, and especially if they opened up some of those maps that we've already had in like both RE4 and RE5, because that's where most of the maps are coming in from, where they are the actual like maps and not like cut off or shrunk down versions of those maps, because like with that game I'm assuming they had to save in a lot of space for like the resources and stuff like that, so that's why a lot of the maps are like cut off in certain areas, or they're just way smaller and you don't really run into enemies like that. But on having that game on a console, right, that in theory shouldn't be really an issue at that point, especially if they're doing things like no mercy mode like from RE5. So that's kind of where my mindset is. But then on the flip side too, I kind of would like to see like I don't know, I guess I would really want to see them do like Dead Aim getting a port, even though I've never actually beaten that game. Yeah, I don't know, I feel like Dead Aim would be like really cool to see. Or hell, even like a remake of Gaiden. I'm only saying that because I know like Derek would probably kill me if I didn't say anything about that. So
see, I'm with you with Gaiden though, but on the condition of they gotta remove Leon and replace him with someone else that's not been in the game for a while, like I don't know, Carlos, Rebecca, and Hint. I feel like Barrett should have his own game because it's fucking Barrett. He deserves his own spotlight.
Or just make an original character that's going under the guise of Leon.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because then he could go around calling himself Leon, but that's not actually Leon.
It's Lion.
Exactly. So like, I don't know. I think that's like that'd be great, and then you could get like you could get something really really going off of that. As far as like just trying to more or less like recreate that game and then trying to fit it back into the canon, because I think that game has since been retconned ever since RE4 had come out.
Honestly, I don't even know the canonicity of Gaiden. People say it was canon though, but it got retconned through years of Resident Evil material coming out. But at the same time though, there was nothing necessarily saying it was canon prior to later RE-related content. So I don't know what's up with the game. That game?
Most most of the RE like content, both game wise and like external stuff, right? That's like novels and like the CG movies, not the live action stuff, but the CG movies and anything else like that. Most of that stuff is canon as far as I'm aware. There's just like very specific things that are not canon because they heavily conflict.
For Gaiden though, like that game in particular has a questionable canonicity background.
Yeah.
Because Capcom has blatantly confirmed like CGI stuff is canon, so there's no argument that. But whereas Gaiden though, I have not seen anything that's concrete saying like Gaiden was canon, is canon, at some point was canon, but retcon, this isn't that. So it's up in there for that game.
I think really and truly what I would want is already being done, and it's the Survivor Redux mod that I mentioned, and then the Resident Evil Gaiden remake that's in the works right now. Because I think there's a lot of Gaiden that would be fun to play in a more classic Resident Evil style. Like the boat is a cool location. Obviously the story's dog shit, but like just having zombies around on the boat. It's awesome to see so many people just taking the Source Next PC release of RE2 and then making all these games that weren't quite Resident Evil games into Resident Evil games. It's so fucking cool. I love it. And Gaiden, like I keep saying, it's like it was so close to being good. Like every few steps, I'd be like, I'm kind of feeling this, and then something jank would happen, and I would hate it. But man, it gets so close to just being like a fun game, and it could have worked, and it'd be awesome to see. Hopefully, this project actually finishes, because most mod projects don't. But to be able to play a Resident Evil game in Gaiden setting, it's so fucking fun.
Because I'm thinking about this too, like, because a lot of people want to see Capcom do like, essentially like an official HD remaster of Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3, with just maybe some touch-ups here and just overall cleaner visuals, right? I would actually be really open to the idea of them having like an exclusive Switch port of 1, 2, and 3 that's based on like, say, Deadly Silence, and then kind of build off of that with 2 and 3. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, like, I was kind of thinking about this from how Platinum Games handled like the Wonderful 101 remaster that they did when they ported that over to other platforms, because they had to utilize 2 different screens. So with the case of like Deadly Silence, right, they could have it where like, okay, maybe you have those screens like side by side, or maybe you can have an overlay for that screen and then kind of just shrink it down in like one of the corners, right? Like, I feel like that would be like, hey, here's a reason to not only get a Switch, but now you have like exclusive RE content that you can't get anywhere else on any other platform.
But with seamless HD though.
True.
Yeah, seamless HD does exist.
True.
But still, like, if, let's say, Capcom, which I don't think they do, had access to possibly the original renders from RE2 or RE3 or whatever it is, if not, they probably have access to better hardware as far as AI upscaling goes, and they can have their artists go in and take a more individualized, screen-by-screen approach to it. Definitely not like the one used in the Chrono Cross remaster, because there are people who have already done that better. But I don't know. I would rather see someone remaster and re-release Resident Evils, let's say 1, 2, and 3, and just leave their original look to them, the sharp, blocky pixels and stuff, and leave the compression artifacts in the background. Man, I love seeing that shit. I know everybody is not on board with that, but fuck, I would love to see like a toggleable mode. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like the Halo remaster where you could switch between the original mode and the modern one. I would love an option for that.
Or
for like
the Mega Man games, the Legacy Collection, they have filters where you have smooth, the original, and whatever else. I'm a guy that does original always for Mega Man, but for Resident Evil though, seemingly HD is just I cannot go anywhere else.
It's gorgeous. It really is.
They did that with D2 recently, and it's a cool ass feature. I wish more games would do stuff like that. You hit a button and you're like, hey, I'm back. I'm 20 years in the past now. And then
wait, D2 like the Dreamcast game?
No, Diablo 2.
Oh, I was about to say.
So,
I'm excited
God,
now.
Yeah, there's a re-release of D. Holy shit. So Diablo 2 did that recently, and that's cool as hell.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Not to sound like an asshole because I said hell, but super cool. That would be a neat feature to have. That would be like a feature in an exclusive where I would be like, oh shit, I need to get this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, because having that kind of feature where you could like make it look old or make it look new, like that's always appealing too. And I think like, kind of looking back at Deadly Silence in particular, because it's kind of like this. I know it's considered to a lot of people as like the true director's cut, given what they've done with that game, or even like in a lot of senses the Sega Saturn version of RE1. A lot of people look at it as that way as well, but just in this specific context of like handheld games, like it'd be just really cool just to see like other like specifically maybe like the older RE games that haven't been ported to some of these newer consoles just yet, have like these new up-to-date ports, and those ports are like are coming in with potentially some new content here and some new mechanics. And I know the concern might be a little bit more so of like, can they necessarily do anything with that, because they might not have the source material or like the source code for it. Although surprisingly enough, Capcom still had the source code for like RE0 on N64 in their files, so
Capcom's pretty good at keeping the source code. I think at worst they probably scrap like beta versions of games because I keep these, but that might be selective. But yeah, Capcom's been pretty good at keeping the source code on like a lot of companies at the time.
Konami.
even if they don't have it though, if you were going to remaster a game, not having the source code wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if you do have working PC ports, and you have PC ports of Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3, and you have Japanese and specific releases of them that have like higher quality assets and run at a higher resolution and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So even without the source code, if they lost source code for Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3, having the working PC port means you can backwards engineer everything from that point and make a working like HD port. I mean, that's how everybody's making these Resident Evil mods right now, is using the Source Next releases.
And was y'all really some good as mods on the interwebs?
You know what? I just thought of something too, because I brought up RE0. Why not have like an official port of that scrap version of RE0, just for the hell of it? Just call it the RE0
I definitely
remake.
do want to play it. Like, heck, if it's complete enough, man, let's play through the whole game. Like,
Or maybe just the train section. I just want something, because it's like 1.5. You want to be in there so fucking bad.
You just want to know, like, what is it like?
Honestly, the train section was literally the best part about Resident Evil 0, at least in my humble opinion. So, like, I wouldn't be against at least just playing through that. But,
listen, you and I are going to have a fight one of these days because of your horrifying opinions about Resident Evil 0.
But, hey, look, man. 0 exists. All right, that's the best thing about it.
I'm like the only person that defends that game.
No, you and I, shoulder to shoulder, will defend that game.
Look, man, look.
I get to be Rebecca. You can be the other dude. I'll be Rebecca with a cute hat on and back to back defending from the hordes, man.
Deal.
Look,
I think 0 is the obvious evolution of Resident Evil's mechanics. If you're going to change Resident Evil to like make something new, it's RE0. I'm dead serious. I'll stand firm on that.
I'm right there with you. I was called crazy in some other calls because I was the only one stepping up for 0, but it's good to know that I'm not the only one.
Okay, so think about it. Let's be realistic. Let's say you were going to keep Resident Evil relatively true to its original sort of survival horror roots, but you have to change things because you don't want to release one game every 2 years that plays exactly the same. So if you're going to evolve the inventory system, having you be able to drop items on the spot, use herbs as soon as you pick them up without having free item space, trade items back and forth between two characters. I mean, it makes so much sense to me.
No, I agree. Those are actually good ideas. I'm not going to dispute that. The problem is the execution on a lot of these ideas that Capcom implemented in RE0 is fucking garbage.
I don't know, man. I think they work. I love the inventory system in RE0.
Let's see. If I had item boxes, though, I would have no complaints about dropping. In fact, no, dropping items is honestly should be a thing, like bar none. Like, let me just drop it and come back to it and get it later. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Can I please at least do that much? But to have no item boxes, though, that makes no juggling items, especially in the spots where there's limited load of items you can put on one, location on screen. You gotta go to another room and drop items there. Like, it is tedious, and it doesn't have to be.
I don't know, man. I think it makes for such good strategy. Because, okay, so think of it this way.
Yeah, it does make good strategy, but it's not the best strategy. There's other ways to get
I love it. If you I've so many times in a Resident Evil game, you came across a key item that you needed, but all you have on you is like maybe ammo and a few guns or something. So what do you do? What's more tedious, trekking back to the item box, or dropping one box of handgun rounds to pick up a key, use that key, come back and get your handgun rounds on the way back? You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
it
both can be
works so
tedious, though.
good.
The reverse can also happen where, oh yeah, I dropped the item and left in butt nowhere. So I gotta go all the way back there, drop this item, and pick up this item, then go all the way back, do this, and then turn around and need it again later. You know.
See, that sounds like a planning issue on your part. That's
I mean, that
I think that's the problem with you,
that
sir.
also applies to not getting this key item and having full inventory. That's poor planning on your part as well.
So
like again, it go both ways.
I'm
it definitely can, but they let you account for it in RE0, whereas in any other Resident Evil game, like what do you do at that point? There's not a lot that can be done outside using ammo or using a healing item or trekking all the way back, which could be a long way to an item box, or in RE0 you could put down whatever it is, and then the map. This is the most genius part of it. They keep track of the items that you put down in every room on the map. So you're never like, where did I put those shotgun shells? You could just look at your phone. Oh god, it's so good. I'm telling you, RE0 changed the game up in the best way.
So I'm kind of a fence sitter when it comes to RE0, because there's aspects I will absolutely defend, and then there are things that I'm like, yeah, I think that could have been better. Like, I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. Like, definitely not one of the worst RE games that I've played. Because some people like to say that, well, it's the worst because you have to backtrack for the hook shot, right? Especially if
that's absolutely garbage.
which to be fair, yeah, like
it's not
even if you know that though, like, why is that even a thing? Because you can easily cut yourself if you're not, mindful of that. Like granted, yeah, if you're a veteran player, weekly breakthroughs, that's no problem. But it's still a tedious task to just keep that hook shot so close by over and over again. Where if I had an item box near my objective, at least I could put it in there and move on with my day. So can I please have both, drop items in item boxes? Is that so hard to ask for?
I feel like one element sort of makes the other element obsolete, though. If you can drop items, why would you use the item box?
Well, I mean, if I don't need this item, though, and I'm full, I gotta just drop it. It's better than discarding it.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like if you had that one element there, or if I had an item box, and I just wouldn't drop any items, and if I could drop items, I just wouldn't use an item box.
I feel like
I guess that's on you.
What I was gonna say was, like, I feel like that's a thing of I don't know. I would like the option of both, and to kind of turn this a little bit more full circle here, like RE0, like, if they were to do that demake, like, imagine if they decided to change things up and not keep that system, or better yet, keep that system and then apply that item box, or I don't know, do something completely different. I don't know, I think the idea of like RE0 just as a game, would be a fun time. At least I think so. I enjoyed my time with RE0. Yeah, I had some frustrating bits for sure. I'm not gonna lie, but like, I don't know. RE0 is not a perfect game, but definitely not the worst. I would not put it under that category.
At least it has good level design.
Literally, part of
the best thing about Zero. I like their level design is on point.
Part of it though is because they literally recreated rooms from Onimusha and RE2.
What, they recreated rooms from Onimusha?
Yeah, there's literally a hallway in the training facility that is directly the same camera angles and the same like layout as one of the areas in Onimusha 1.
Damn, that's so dope.
So like,
That's
and I think even like the rooms that are in that area are literally just kind of like very similar layout wise and size wise as well. So it's like, but I mean, Capcom has done that with like even RE2, where like some of the RPD, right, is like literally just borrowing aspects from the mansion from 1, and they just recreated it from there.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, I don't know. It's kind of cool. Like, I don't know. I don't despise Zero. That's how I put it. Like, I could defend Zero like as a game, but I definitely get the frustration that comes with it. I don't think it's like the worst. I should like emphasize that. So I think like as that game in mind, right? Like if they were to do that demake and then put that on like Switch, like yeah, I'd pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to play the N64 version in any capacity. I just wish something was playable.
Like they have the source code. Like Capcom, just somebody at Capcom, just please leak it.
Yeah, you're not going to make money off of it. It seems. I mean, like it can only create goodwill for you to release it. Like, you stand to lose nothing because you already have a finished product made from that. So either make a fucking game from it, you know what I mean? Like release something, or just put the fucking source code out there. Let us have it, man. Like it's oh, it kills me so bad. I hate it so much because they're not going to lose any money off of this because they're not making a new Resident Evil 0 or an N64 remaster. They're just not going to do it.
Right.
Just fucking leak it out there anonymously.
The sad part is that Capcom knows damn well that we will pay for just about anything that we ask for, and they choose not to release any of the stuff that we ask for.
Yeah, I mean, the money's on the table. They're just choosing not to grab it. Like we were talking about before, remasters of 1 through 3, they wouldn't even have to put much effort in. We would all buy it. I have the Chrono Cross remaster, and I knew it was going to be shit. Like, we're all idiots. We're going to buy it. Just give us the opportunity to.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't bought that yet because, they got the ball on that one.
Wasn't the re-release of Chrono Trigger also like bad? The originally the PC version of that was pretty
yes,
good, right?
Square Enix has a weird history in the 2000s and 2010s of having botched PC ports.
Gotcha.
Almost all the games, so Chrono Trigger was definitely one of them.
Well, because for the longest time, what they were doing is developing re-releases for mobile platforms like cell phones, and then just shitting those onto Steam.
Yeah, I think Chrono Trigger was actually a mobile port.
Yeah, that's
so was
it.
FF6.
It was, and I'd never played Chrono Trigger, but I was kind of interested, so I bought it, and then I found that out. I returned it. I still have all the wallpapers from that Steam purchase, though, so I can literally share all of those if anybody does not have that port but just wants the wallpapers because they might be Chrono Trigger fans. So
yeah. The DS port it was pretty fucking good. There's some stuff I don't like about it, but if you can't play the original, the DS is not a bad way to go about it.
Yeah, I definitely gotta build up that DS library, and especially now since I'm gonna be playing Deadly Silence and Mercenaries 3D, it's I'm gonna be preoccupied with my 3DS, which is a shame because not in the sense of like, hey, I don't want to play my 3DS. It's just more so like I need more reasons to play my Vita as well. So and all I got is PlayStation 1 games at the moment that I could really play, and Shiren the Wanderer on Vita. So
Shiren the Wanderer is so good, dude. I love that. Honestly, though, I think I like the PSP release of Shiren the Wanderer way better than the Vita release.
Okay, yeah, I definitely gotta. I don't know. I gotta check out some of these games for sure.
Yeah.
But we've definitely kind of diverged here, and
Kind of.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mario Zero to Shiren the Wanderer.
Hey, you know what? It's okay. We all had fun, right? That's okay. But yeah, just to kind of wrap things up here, since we did kind of go all over the place here, and I'm not expecting everybody to stay on point here. I'm just hoping everybody had fun, right? So, with that said, let's go ahead and do outros, and then I guess we could just kind of hang out for a bit until everybody has to go and do stuff, right? So you all can find me as BioDevil_Dom on, well, obviously YouTube. That's where you'd be watching this, and then Twitter. And that's pretty much where I am. Otherwise, let's find out where everybody else can be found. Jared, where can we find you?
Just if you Google search Avalanche Reviews, you'll find me somewhere. I have a YouTube channel. I got a Twitter. I think that might be it. Avalanche Reviews. It's either that or you'll find reviews for Chevy Avalanche, one or the other.
Yeah, or you could just type in Resident Evil retrospective, and you'd probably find him.
Oh yeah, you have a good chance there.
Yeah. So, how about Divic? Where can we find you?
I have a Twitter at Divic. It's mostly just shit posting, so it's really not like you'll probably lose brain cells more than anything else. But
hey, if you want a good time,
yeah, hey, there you go. Losing brain cells is a good time. So.
Yep. And last but not least, Brandon, where can we find you?
Well, aside from invading your channel every Saturday or whatever, you can find me on Twitter at SirBrandel, which is SirBrandel, which I might actually change my name now. I've been wanting to do it for a while.
The man with a million names.
The man with a million names, just like I am in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone else is none of your damn business, so don't ask.
Yep. Yeah, and then real quick too, before we wrap things up, I do want to say that I think we're planning on having another podcast that I will not be hosting because it's going to be on a subject that I am not familiar with, but I will have somebody hosting that one. I just need to find out if that one is going to be done over this weekend or not. And then also, too, by the time I get ready for my move sometime in August, you may or may not see some content coming in from other people hosting the podcasts. So, just some news on that. But until then, as we start coming out with more stuff, just stay tuned for that, and we'll hope to see you on the next one. Bye.
Oh,
All right.